The story opens inside a bedroom, where a boy named Chu Ching is lying on the bed while Changxi sits on top of him. As Chu Ching slowly opens his eyes, Changxi beams with joy, clearly relieved to see him awake. Yet Chu Ching himself is stunned, bewildered to find such a girl with him in this situation. In panic, he leaps off the bed and urgently demands to know where he is. Changxi, with a calm yet curious tone, remarks that she hadn't expected the drug's effect to wear off so soon. Even so, she admits she finds it far more amusing to have a living man by her side. Chu Ching is utterly confused by her strange words. Overwhelmed, he lets out a scream. Then it suddenly dawns on him that he has actually been reborn. 300 years ago, he had accidentally stepped into the immortal realm while at Qingcheng Mountain, beginning the path of cultivation. For those 300 years, he had trained relentlessly day and night, building up his strength until he rose to become a sword cultivator. He had been on the very brink of reaching the realm of eternity, but instead of advancing forward, he mistakenly opened a hall of time and space, and to his astonishment, he returned to the moment when he was only 17 years old. Still baffled by this woman's presence, he asks her directly what she is after, but she only grows more alluring, behaving with seductive charm. Chu Ching insists there must be a misunderstanding and tells her that he should be leaving. Changxi rises confidently, declaring that she never releases her prey and that it should be an honor for him to have caught her interest. Yet Chu Ching ignores her advances and begins heading for the door. Suddenly, Changxi clamps down on his hand with a forceful grip. He turns back, holding onto her hand as well. He quickly realizes his current body is weak, lacking much spiritual energy, though he still tries to push her away. But she lunges at him instead. Bursts of light flash like lasers, and Chu Ching falls backward onto the floor. His eyes catch sight of his school uniform lying nearby. He hurriedly grabs it and dashes out, trying to escape the house. Yet Changxi calls after him, teasingly referring to him as her big white rabbit, whom she refuses to let go. Stepping outside at last, Chu Ching takes in the sight of the city before him. A city he has not set eyes upon for 3 full centuries. His heart swells with happiness. He has truly returned to Earth, and now there is hope of reuniting with his parents. But almost immediately, he notices something unsettling about the world around him. Women were completely dominating over men, while men, in contrast, carried themselves with softness and feminine mannerisms. The sight leaves Chu Ching utterly shaken. He soon realizes that in this strange world, women control all aspects of life, holding the power and responsibilities men once possessed in a normal society. The story then shifts to the library, where Chu Ching searches for an explanation as to why things have changed so drastically. He uncovers records of an ancient catastrophe that struck between the spring and autumn periods, an event that altered women's physiology, making them both stronger and more intelligent. Among them rose a woman named Kong Mo, who spread the ideology that women were superior to men, shifting the imperial throne from princes into the hands of princesses. In this society, extramarital affairs mark men as unfaithful and disgraceful, while women freely pursue men without judgment. Chu Ching wonders uneasily whether even his own family has been shaped by this twisted order. Returning home, he finds his father, Lin Yuan too, quietly tending the household chores. His father is startled at his sudden return, for Chu Ching had claimed earlier that he was visiting a friend and would be back late. But his father quickly picks up on the faint trace of women's perfume clinging to him. With suspicion, he asks if Chu Ching had been out with a woman, reminding him once again that it is dangerous for a handsome boy like him to wander about outside. He even shows him a news report about a 15-year-old boy whose classmate assaulted him, the scandalous video spreading and destroying his life. Chu Ching reassures his father that there's no need to worry, then asks where his mother might be. His father explains that she is away on business, struggling lately as their family's affairs are not going well. Chu Ching then heads to his sister's room, calling her out to eat with him. To his shock, he finds her watching adult content on her screen. Embarrassed, he slams the door shut, his face burning. From outside, he shouts for her to come join the meal. She eventually comes out, her face red with embarrassment. Chu Ching directly asks if she had been watching that kind of content inside her room. She boldly replies that in this modern age of live streams, it's exciting to watch young men with hot bodies. Then without shame, she walks away. Dressing herself up to go out with friends, she casually asks their father for 100 yuan. Their father questions why she needs to go out with them. She answers that it's for socializing and for making business connections. Her father urges her to learn something from her brother so that both parents wouldn't have to worry about her. She retorts that she doesn't need to learn from him. After all, he can just marry a wealthy woman, while she must fight for her own future. Demanding her parents' support, she storms out of the house. Chu Ching turns to his father, asking if it is truly all right to let her go like that. His father sighs, saying there's nothing he can do. she must go out and earn her own way. Chu Ching finds himself ever more unsettled by this female-dominated world. Not long after, his mother returns home from work. He rushes to her side, embracing her tightly. Concerned, she asks him what is troubling him. With care, she presses some pocket money into his hand. Chu Ching reflects bitterly that in his past life, his mother had always been stingy, forcing him to beg for a little money just to step out. Now she freely hands him cash without hesitation. He tries to give it back, but his mother firmly refuses to take it. His father then brings up his sister, complaining that she has been deceiving them. Yet his mother dismisses it, laughing that this was exactly how she had managed to win him over in the first place. Chu Ching grows frustrated, disliking how his parents act in this reversed world. Anxiously, he wonders whether he too will fall into the same pattern one day. With a heavy heart, he leaves them and heads into his own spotless room. There he reflects on how in this world women reign supreme. Every family prays for daughters. To marry a worthy man, a woman must possess a house and a car, while men need only beauty and charm. He pulls open a drawer and finds it stacked with letters. Only then does he recall that he had been treated as the school princess back in middle school. Sitting down, he decides it would be better to simply focus on cultivation and leave this world behind as quickly as possible. He also begins to consider the Kai present here. The energy is so dense that with it, he may be able to open a passage back to his original realm. He starts practicing his cultivation techniques. After performing the Goken freedom skill, his senses heighten and his awareness deepens. Countless thoughts swirl endlessly in his mind. His yearning to escape this world, his sister still absent from home, and many more troubling matters. Suddenly his phone rings. It's his sister calling. Her voice trembles with distress as she pleads for help. She urgently begs him to bring a black bag hidden under her bed. She warns him not to tell their parents or the authorities, explaining that some women are holding her captive. If he doesn't bring the bag immediately, she will be harmed. She instructs him to deliver it to Crescendo Bar on High Street, room 302. Ending the call, Chu Ching races into her room. He swiftly finds the black bag under her bed and seizes it. He knows he cannot let anyone endanger his family. Foregoing the streets, he uses his cultivation skills, leaping across rooftops to reach the bar as swiftly as possible. Arriving at room 302, he bursts in to find his sister weeping, surrounded by threatening women. He hurls the bag onto the table before the leader, demanding his sister's release. But instead of focusing on the bag, the woman eyes Chu Ching with interest and inquires about his age. He coldly dismisses her, saying such things do not matter. She then opens the bag, revealing stacks of money inside. His sister gasps in shock. She had no idea the bag contained such wealth. Chu Ching himself is stunned, realizing it must total nearly $1 million. His sister insists she never knew, explaining that Xiao Lin had merely asked her to keep the bag safe for a while. The woman declares that Lin had caused trouble at her place and stolen this money. With that, she finally lets Chu Ching's sister go, but she makes it clear that she has no intention of letting Chu Ching himself leave so easily. As his sister prepared to leave, she muttered under her breath that things would never be that simple. The woman smirked, remarking that Chu looked young and adorable, and she had no intention of letting him walk away. Still, she allowed his sister to go free. Chu's sister, however, tried desperately to shield him, pleading that the woman spare her brother and let him go. The lady only laughed cruelly, saying if she truly wanted Chu to leave, then his sister must remain behind and work for them. With a heavy heart, his sister agreed, telling Chu to go home. She promised she would sort things out and catch up with him later. Chu Ching, angered by her words, declared firmly that he had morals. He turned to the woman, asking if she was truly serious about making him stay. Planting his foot boldly on the table, he mocked her with defiance. The woman's eyes narrowed as she warned him not to be clever, threatening to drag him into her bed and torment him in every way imaginable. In response, Chu Ching surged forward and delivered a resounding slap that sent blood flying from her mouth. His sister gasped in horror as the room erupted into chaos. Chu quickly realized the woman's strength, astonished that in this world women possessed such raw power. Enraged, the lady ordered her guards to seize him. But Chu Ching, relying on his cultivation, leapt away and taunted them, daring them to catch him if they could. With swift strikes, he overwhelmed the guards and began striding toward the exit. The woman then drew a gun, pointing it at him and threatening to shoot. Terrified, his sister begged her again to spare his life. The lady sneered, declaring no amount of begging could save them. She intended to kill them both. Just then, the door creaked open. Changxi stepped inside, a cigarette dangling from her lips. Her eyes swept the room with amusement, as she asked why she hadn't been invited to such a spectacle. A sly smile crossed her face as she expressed delight in seeing Chu again. Chu immediately recognized her as the very woman he had awoken to on the day of his rebirth. He demanded to know why she was here. Calmly, she replied that the bar was her territory and she ordered everyone else to leave. She declared that Chu Ching now belonged to her and that she would be responsible for him. Zhou Yun, the woman he had fought, protested angrily, saying this went against the rules. Changxi's expression hardened as she commanded her guards to seize Zhou Yun. Without hesitation, she ordered them to cut off Zhou Yun's hands and feet and throw her onto the street. Turning back to Chu, Changxi's gaze softened with admiration, telling him this was her gift to him. Chu was taken aback by such sudden generosity. She explained that he was the first man bold enough to speak to her in such a way. That alone set him apart from all others, and she openly expressed her desire for him to become her 36th boyfriend. But Chu rejected her firmly, insisting he had no interest in her and could stand on his own. Changxi scoffed, remarking that someone like him with such a delicate frame could easily end up as Zhou Yun's plaything. Chu countered sharply, asking if she was comparing her strength to his. He then proposed a wager. If he won, she must stop bothering him. His sister, terrified, tried to stop him, but Changxi, brimming with confidence, agreed to the challenge. If she won, she said, then Chu would become her boyfriend. A crowd quickly gathered as the contest began, whispering among themselves that a man daring to face a woman was sheer folly. They claimed men were fragile like water, while women were forged like iron. It became clear to Chu that in this society, women truly were seen as powerful while men were belittled. Changxi was determined to demonstrate the vast gap in strength between them. She fought with immense might, her power far beyond that of ordinary women. Yet Chu Ching refused to yield. He would prove he was no ordinary man. Calling upon his cultivation, he unleashed his true ability and overcame her, seizing victory. Standing tall, he reminded Changxi of the terms of their bet. Grabbing his sister's hand, he strode out, leaving the crowd stunned, disbelieving that a man had triumphed over a woman. Changxi herself was shaken, though also deeply intrigued. One of her guards suggested pursuing him, but she silenced them with a slap. With a smirk, she declared she hadn't lost him yet. Watching him go, she murmured that men like him were meant to fulfill women's desires. She repeated her offer. If he became her husband, no other woman would dare touch him. Chu Ching coldly rejected her again, asking who had told her that men must cling to women. He insisted men had hands and feet of their own, fully capable of walking their own path. The onlookers were left stunned by his refusal. Changxi argued back, claiming that since ancient times, women had been the pillars of society, with men pursued and dependent. Even children, she said, knew this truth. Another woman chimed in, declaring that while a few male heroes existed in stories, it was women who truly shaped civilization. Chu stepped closer and stated firmly that what he knew was this: men strive and struggle to better themselves, and through their efforts, they bring rewards and joy to the women they cherish. With those words, he turned and left the bar. Changxi watched him, her interest burning hotter than ever, declaring that he was exactly her type, and that she would never let him go. Her guard again asked if they should give chase, but Changxi only smirked, saying she intended to wait and let him wander freely a little longer. Chu returned home with his sister, who begged him not to tell their parents about what had happened. But Chu insisted he would tell them, since their worry for her was genuine. Angrily, his sister shouted at him, frightened of the consequences. Still in awe of his strength, she asked why he would refuse Changxi, pointing out that she was the heiress of a powerful family in Jinmen. If he married her, both of them would gain immense benefits. Chu's temper flared. He told her to shut her mouth or he'd drag her back to the bar himself. By the time they returned home, tensions hung heavy between them. Retreating to his room, Chu continued his cultivation, determined to restore his true strength. He still felt far too weak. Meanwhile, his sister was watching indecent videos again, leaving Chu to think bitterly that she was even worse than his sister from his original world. The next morning, Chu headed to school. There he reunited with his best friend Lin Dong. Lin clutched Chu's hand, asking what he had been doing the day before and why he hadn't answered his calls. Chu, however, felt a wave of irritation at Lin's overly feminine demeanor. Lin mentioned that rumors said Chu had been in serious trouble yesterday. Chu brushed it off lightly, saying it was nothing and that he was fine. He quickly excused himself, thinking this boy no longer acted like the friend he once knew. Entering the classroom, Chu found everyone absorbed in their own activities. Sitting at his desk, he felt restless, filled with the urge to leave this strange world. The class president, Song Kaoran, tapped his shoulder and asked if he was all right, excusing his behavior by saying he must simply be hungry. Nervously, she offered to eat with him. Another girl, jealous, snapped at her to back off. Shoving Kaoran aside, she asked if Chu had read her love letter from the day before. Chu, annoyed, pushed her away, which infuriated her. She raised her fist, ready to strike. A fight was about to break out. At that moment, another student, Yimao, entered. He told the girl to stop. Yimao, as it turned out, was Yi Changxi's brother. He asked to speak with Chu privately. Leading him outside, he apologized. He expressed regret for the trouble between Chu and his sister the previous day. He then invited Chu to join him and Changxi for a ride. Chu scoffed, replying that she would likely drug him again and drag him back to her bedroom just as before. Yimao blushed with embarrassment at his blunt words. Later that day, after classes ended, Chu walked along the road. A car screeched to a stop beside him, Changxi's car. Rolling down the window, she called out to him, telling him to get in, claiming it was for the sake of his family. Reluctantly, Chu entered. Changxi's smile widened in satisfaction, but Chu warned her coldly she had made a grave mistake by involving his family. She reassured him once more, saying that she had no intention of threatening him. Yet he pressed the issue, insisting she admit whether her words carried any threat or not. Leaping forward, he warned her sternly that she needed to understand the weight of threatening him. With suspicion in his voice, Chu asked why she was showing such sympathy toward him. She answered calmly that regardless of whether it was sympathy, she meant to pursue him openly, suggesting they start as friends and in time handle his family's matters together. At last, Chu leaned back in his seat, agreeing to be her friend. However, he added a warning not to irritate him and urged her to drive faster. Then she suddenly asked if he practiced martial arts. Chu replied that he did not, adding that in this world, men possess the ability to cultivate. But she remained unconvinced. She said she suspected he was hiding his true strength and wasn't like other men, explaining that she had investigated his family and found no ties to ancient martial arts. She believed he was deliberately concealing his abilities. Chu was baffled by her claims, unable to understand what she was implying. Without warning, another vehicle rammed into them, causing chaos. Changxi immediately turned toward Chu in panic, asking if he was all right. Though injured, Chu managed to endure the pain and force himself out of the car. Changxi insisted that they head straight to the hospital, but before they could take a step, they noticed something approaching. A group of female silhouettes drew near. They were armed with weapons, and Changxi shouted at them, demanding how they dared to harm Chu. Prepared to fight, she leapt into the air and delivered a fierce kick. Another woman advanced toward Chu, once again underestimating him. He struck her with his fist and joined the battle. Then, with swift movements, he kicked his opponents away using his skills. Changxi fought at his side without hesitation. The women were stunned to witness his combat abilities. Together, they overcame their attackers. After the clash, Changxi praised Chu. She admitted that without him, she would have faced a dire situation, and afterward invited him to join her for dinner. Chu politely declined, suggesting they meet another day instead. He needed to return before his father grew concerned. Just then, Changxi's phone rang, startling her. She cried out in distress as she answered. Chu wanted to ask about the matter but chose to remain silent, deciding it was not his place, and began walking away. With tears brimming in her eyes, Changxi grabbed his hand and pleaded with him. She begged him not to leave, revealing that her mother had been injured in the same way they had. Chu was surprised to hear this, wondering how such a coincidence could occur, that both mother and daughter were harmed at the same time. It seemed the Jinmen underworld was on the verge of upheaval. Changxi confided that if her mother died, her aunt would throw her out of the family. Chu comforted her, assuring her not to worry. He promised to stay with her and encouraged her to stay strong, reminding her that her family now depended on her resilience. Deeply moved by his words, she began to place her trust in him. Overwhelmed, she embraced him tightly. That night they arrived at Changxi's mansion. Her guards welcomed her with relief, but also reported troubling news. They said the atmosphere was tense. Her aunt Yemei had declared that no one except Changxi was permitted inside. Chu asked her directly what was happening. Changxi explained that her mother had told her Yemei had long conspired with other families. But since there was no evidence, no action could be taken. She never expected her aunt to act so suddenly. Ignoring her aunt's decree, Changxi strode forward with Chu Ching at her side. When others attempted to stop her, she shouted back. She demanded to know how they dared mistreat her guest. Chu intervened, claiming he was a doctor who had come to examine Ms. Yi. He explained that he had studied medicine in the fairy world and that his skills could prove useful now. The guards sneered, mocking the idea of a man being a doctor. One even joked that a fellow guard had suffered from reproductive infections and kidney issues for years, likely caused by old martial arts practices, and despite Chinese remedies, nothing had helped. That guard relied heavily on pills, while another retorted that she had no right to criticize others for the same. At last, they reluctantly allowed Chu to enter with Changxi. Inside, her aunt and cousin, Ye Yemei, were waiting. Yemei remarked coldly that Changxi had arrived just in time, otherwise who could predict the outcome. Changxi boldly asked her aunt about her mother's condition. Her aunt reminded her to respect family hierarchy, ordering her to address her properly as aunt. She then turned to Chu, questioning why Changxi had brought a stranger into the home. Men, she declared, were forbidden from entering the Yi family household. Changxi insisted that Chu was a doctor and that she needed him to see her mother. Yemei was stunned to learn Chu was a doctor. She had assumed he was simply someone Changxi had taken in days earlier. She added mockingly that if a man wished to enter the Ye family, he would need to prove his abilities and become part of their lineage. Otherwise, he could not step inside. Then she ordered her daughter to test whether Chu truly had any skill. In truth, it was a trap meant for Changxi, because if Yemei injured Changxi's guest, Changxi would naturally defend him, even if it meant breaking the family's rules. If she did, not even her mother could shield her from exile. Ye Mei made a brazen bet with Chu. If she won, he would have to spend the night with her. Changxi furiously scolded her for her shamelessness, but Chu stopped her and calmly said it was fine. He accepted the challenge. Ye Mei suddenly lunged, and Chu realized her crude words had merely been a distraction. He countered with a powerful punch, sending her flying backward. Then he mockingly asked if she still wished to share a bed with him. Outraged at the violence toward her daughter, Mei called Chu a beast, but Changxi defended him, declaring that Ye Mei had provoked him first. Chu suggested they take Ye Mei to the hospital, unsure whether she had suffered internal damage. Her aunt cursed him bitterly, but they ignored her and proceeded further into the house. Another cousin stood guarding her mother's door. She was relieved to see Changxi and embraced her warmly. Changxi anxiously asked about her mother, and her cousin explained that while she was stable, the wound was serious and still under watch. Chu advised that they waste no time and check on her directly to see what he could do to help. The cousin hesitated, asking who he was. Changxi clarified that he was a friend and a doctor who had come to examine her mother. Together, they entered the room, and Changxi hugged her mother in relief at finding her alive. Her mother asked immediately who Chu was. Chu introduced himself as a doctor, explaining that Changxi had invited him to treat her. He requested to see her wound, but at that moment he realized it was already late and he hadn't returned home yet. Knowing his father would be angry, he worried about explaining his absence. Changxi's mother chuckled, saying there wasn't much more he could do, and asked him to leave so she could spend time with her daughter. Her cousin showed him to the door and he quietly stepped out. Changxi then urged her mother to allow him to examine the wound, praising him as an extraordinary man who had even saved her life. Her mother was surprised. This was the first time Changxi had ever spoken highly of a man. Just then Chu entered, reporting that the attackers had targeted her with harmful energy on the left side of her back. He explained that she had been forced to use a great deal of her power to resist, leaving her weakened, and if unchecked, the negative energy would soon spread. Alarmed, her mother asked everyone to leave, stating she wished to speak with Chu alone. Changxi resisted at first but obeyed her mother's order and stepped out. The door closed behind them. Her mother immediately questioned Chu, asking if he had been sent by the Li family and what his intentions were with Changxi. Chu, confused, clarified that he had no connection to the Li family. He told her that if she doubted his presence with Changxi, she should ask her daughter, since it was she who sought him out. He reminded her that he had saved Changxi's life, and without him she might not have survived. Her mother believed his words and agreed to show him the wound. Yet she warned him sharply that if he harbored any schemes against Changxi, his family would be the ones to bury his body. As she began removing her clothes, Chu quickly shut his eyes and told her to stop, admitting that while he was young, he was still a man. When he opened them again, he saw a terrible wound on her back, swollen and infected. He was stunned at the severity. It was far worse than expected. He told her that though she could endure it for now, within days her internal organs would begin to deteriorate. Her mother asked if he had any means to treat it. He said he would attempt it, placing his hand on the wound. He began channeling his power to absorb the dark energy. The process brought her immense pain, as Chu poured every ounce of his strength into the effort. With his current limits, he could only draw out part of the corruption. He explained he dared not remove it all at once. He had done as much as he could for now. She felt partial relief and said she was feeling better, then asked if he wanted any reward for saving her. Chu replied that Changxi was his friend, and helping her was nothing more than a natural act of kindness. She smiled softly, remarking that she had forgotten he was only her daughter's friend. To Chu, however, the way she said it felt oddly unsettling. She was once again deeply impressed by him and expressed her gratitude for healing her mother. Then she pulled him close for a hug, asking him not to leave that night because she had a small reward prepared for him. Chu gently pushed her away and refused, explaining that if his parents discovered he had spent the night with a girl, they would be furious. He then made his way toward the car. Changxi, understanding, remarked that it was no wonder his parents considered him such a good son. As Chu left, he glanced down at his hand where faint traces remained. It was the remnant of the malignant energy he had absorbed. To him, it felt like a curse, one that his current power was incapable of erasing. Back in the fairy world, he had possessed an elixir capable of handling such corruption, and now he wondered if a similar remedy existed in this realm. The following day, upon arriving at school, he heard students loudly cheering for a girl named Tang Xian. Chu froze in surprise when he heard that name. She was on the basketball court, moving with skill and grace, and all the while she looked strikingly beautiful as she played. He could hardly believe his own eyes. It was really her. His first love from preparatory school. Back then, every boy admired her. Some claimed she melted their hearts, others called her a genius. But Chu quickly remembered that this was a different world where their past connection didn't exist. If he approached her recklessly, he might only embarrass himself. Suddenly, he heard her voice calling out to him. She said she thought she had seen him before. She added as an excuse that since they attended the same school, perhaps she had noticed him around. Yet she insisted it wasn't just that. Brushing off the thought, she went straight to the point, inviting him to play basketball with her, offering to teach him herself. But Chu simply snatched the ball right out of her hand. He spun it skillfully on his finger and agreed to join the game. Tang then teased him, saying that if she won, he would have to become her boyfriend. Chu asked her what would happen if he were the one to win. She replied confidently that she would do whatever he asked. Their classmates began buzzing with excitement over the bold challenge. Tang dribbled swiftly, driving forward. She crossed past him, leapt, and scored the first basket. Chu was taken aback by her impressive skills. The crowd was already convinced she would soon make him her boyfriend. Tang declared she wouldn't hold back because she truly wanted to win. Chu accepted her challenge and told her to keep playing. She dribbled again, weaving forward, before jumping high for another shot. But this time Chu soared even higher, blocking her attempt. The audience gasped in shock at his astounding leap. Chu announced that it was his turn now. Determined, he prepared himself. Driving forward, Chu sprang into the air and landed his shot, scoring and taking the win. Tang had lost the match. She asked him softly what he wanted her to do now that victory was his. Chu touched her cheek gently and asked her to go on a date with him. The crowd erupted in joy at his request. Tang blushed, smiling as her face turned red. She told him that if he truly wanted to date her, he would need to grow even stronger. Chu wondered to himself when she had become so proud and full of herself. He realized then that ever since the day he helped Changxi's mother, his pure aura and spiritual body had increased by 30%. Later, Changxi asked him directly what reward he wished for saving her mother. He briefly entertained some mischievous thoughts and chuckled quietly to himself. When she pressed again, asking why he was smiling and what kind of reward he wanted, he brushed it off, saying it was nothing and that he needed more time to think. On his way back from school, Chu reflected that next time he would fully heal Changxi's mother. After that, he could completely awaken his spiritual body, for his progress in this world was rapid. Just then, a car pulled up beside him and stopped. A man stepped out and approached. He asked if Chu Ching was his name and whether it was true that he was pursuing Tang Xian. The man spat disdainfully on the ground, introduced himself as Li Wei, and demanded to know if Chu understood who he was. Chu showed no interest, casually calling him a fool. Furious, Li Wei barked that Chu had better not ignore him when he was speaking. He then launched a sudden attack, but Chu seized his hand and twisted it without effort. Strangely, none of Li Wei's guards came to his aid. Chu slammed his head against the ground and struck the guards aside with kicks. He warned Li Wei to bring more men next time if he truly wanted to challenge him. Li Wei spat out a threat, saying the Li family would never let Chu walk free, and declared that Tang Xian was already promised to him in marriage through a family agreement. Enraged, Chu beat Li Wei brutally. Afterward, he realized he needed to uncover whether this marriage arrangement was Tang Xian's decision or forced upon her by her family, and how they could agree to such a deal with the Li family. He also wondered if this Li Yue was the same figure Changxi's mother had once mentioned. Recalling Changxi's earlier offer, he resolved to seek her help. He sent her a message asking for a private investigator. She responded by transferring him 10,000 yuan, which left him confused at first, but he reasoned he could use the funds to purchase information. Then he made a call, asking if he was speaking to someone named Hua. On the other end, a woman replied flirtatiously, asking if he wanted to date her, warning him she wasn't cheap. Later, he went to the location she had arranged for their meeting. As he waited, he thought about the mysterious person selling him the information. Suddenly, a hand tapped his shoulder, and a voice greeted him casually with a hey. It was a woman named Chen Hua, who looked surprisingly youthful for someone 23 years old. She stepped closer and asked what information he was seeking. Chu was stunned, finding it hard to believe she was truly the broker, as she looked far too young. She confirmed her identity and teased him, asking about his relationship with Yi Changxi, joking that if Changxi wasn't his girlfriend, she'd gladly take her place. Chu nearly choked on his drink at her brazenness. Regaining composure, he told her he was after information concerning the Tang family. Hua's expression darkened, and she demanded to know if Tang Xian, the girl he had just played basketball with, was his girlfriend. Chu was startled she knew this much already, and wondered if she had investigated him beforehand. He warned her not to underestimate him. He threatened that he could always find someone else to purchase information from. Hua, however, only found his serious demeanor even more intriguing. She explained that the Tang family was among the most powerful clans, with their primary corporation serving as the central hub of their influence. Many of the largest companies were under their ownership. However, she added, the Tang family had recently run into financial trouble and their standing had weakened. To resolve it, the Li family offered an alliance. Tang Xian, the family heiress, was to marry Li Yue in exchange for support. Chu was shaken by this revelation, wondering if Xian had hidden it from him so he wouldn't feel burdened. Hua then asked if this information was sufficient for him. Chu, still unsatisfied, asked if she knew anything about alchemy or the ancient martial arts clans, unsure if they still existed in this world. Hua revealed that the Tang family itself was one of those ancient clans, renowned for their elixirs and medicines. She teased him again, calling him a sweet, tempting little brother. Irritated, Chu snapped at her, demanding she cut out that nonsense. He then asked in awe about spiritual power, wondering if there were others in this world like him. She replied that she had already provided 2 pieces of priceless information, normally worth 100,000 yuan. But because she liked him, she would grant him a 20% discount, stepping closer as she spoke. Chu then asked if she knew anything about secret dealings, such as trades involving medicinal materials or similar matters. Hua agreed to share such details, but only if he agreed to have dinner with her. Chu accepted, and the two went together to a nearby restaurant. The staff there greeted her warmly, clearly familiar with her, and asked what she wished to order. Hua boldly ordered 20 skewers along with 4 chilled beers. Hua couldn't hide his shock, realizing that women in this world had a fondness for pork skewers. Looking around, he saw plenty of women happily pairing the skewers with beer. That moment struck him. It was proof this world held customs very different from the one he once knew. As the evening dragged on, Hua became heavily intoxicated and slowly lost control of herself. She stumbled toward Chu, tears falling, confessing about a boy she once adored who rejected her simply because she had grown up poor. Witnessing her completely fall apart, Chu chose to escort her safely back home. Upon arrival, he was startled to find her room in utter disarray. It dawned on him that she was struggling to manage her life and desperately needed someone's care. With gentleness, he set her down onto the bed. Yet suddenly, she clutched his arm and pulled him onto the bed as well. Breaking into tears again, she begged him not to leave. Feeling both conflicted and sympathetic, he decided to remain by her side. Her tears gradually turned into a fragile smile as she clung tightly to him. She drifted to sleep upon his chest. Though the situation felt awkward for him, he carefully laid her back down and quietly began browsing through his phone for information concerning the Tang family. His search revealed that the Tang clan was famed for their extensive alchemical expertise, though recent infiltrations had placed their status at risk. Delving further, he uncovered a confidential file and stumbled across a photo of the Shizhen auction house, the premier auction hall in Jinmen, operated by an old martial family overflowing with rare elixirs. Chu realized that no matter the world, survival was impossible without wealth. Luckily, he possessed knowledge of something invaluable here. A few days later, while practicing his abilities atop his home's terrace, Chu reflected on the concept of spiritual rocks, crystals said to enhance cultivation flow and assist ancient martial training. Drawing upon his powers, he began forging these spiritual rocks through the process of eternity, a method that absorbed energies from both heaven and earth. Since no such stones existed in this world, he planned to sell one at auction. Soon after, Chu stopped by Changxi's residence to tend to her mother. Once he completed the detoxification, Aunt Yiqing fully recovered, regaining all her strength. Overwhelmed, she expressed heartfelt gratitude, promising that if he ever needed aid, he only had to call upon her. As he departed, he realized that completing the detoxification had partially released his spiritual body. His mission now was to cultivate to the fullest. The process grew so loud that his sister shouted at him and came running to see what was happening. Panicked, Chu scrambled to hide the sword from her sight, all the while nervously, feeling awkward about being exposed in front of her. Flustered, she sarcastically apologized for walking in on what looked like a private session, adding that she wouldn't intrude like that again. Once she left, he resolved to head to the auction house to sell the spiritual rock. By the time he arrived at Shizhen auction house, it was already late. The guard at the entrance informed him the place was closed and told him to return tomorrow. Yet when Chu revealed the spiritual stone, the man's eyes widened at the golden yellow gem. Rising to his feet, he asked for a closer look. As he inspected it, he could feel the immense aura radiating from within. And the most astonishing part was its ability to significantly boost cultivation. Recognizing it instantly as a rare treasure, his attitude shifted dramatically. He introduced himself as Jia Yu, heir to the Shizhen auction house, and greeted him with full courtesy. He then inquired about the stone's name and how many Chu possessed. Chu identified it as a spiritual rock, assuming Jia already understood its qualities, and revealed he had 5 pieces. Jia offered 2 million yuan for each, meaning Chu could secure a staggering 10 million yuan if he sold them all at once. As he walked away, Chu reflected that the price far exceeded his expectations, an undeniably worthy deal. He began entertaining thoughts of building a monopoly and believed it was only a matter of time before he dominated both the auction world and the martial arts scene. On his way back, Chu received a message from Hua inviting him out for drinks that evening. The thought brought a smile to his face, But his fleeting peace was suddenly shattered when an assailant launched an attack. A blade lunged toward him, but instinctively the sword at his neck activated. A brilliant barrier of light formed, shielding him from harm. The attacker froze in shock at the weapon's power. Chu immediately retaliated with several swift slashes, injuring his would-be killer. Closing in, Chu demanded to know who had sent him. Terrified, the assailant admitted that Li Yue had hired him to eliminate Chu, mistakenly believing he was just a feeble student. From that moment, Chu vowed to personally destroy Li Yue. Yet just as he resolved this, something unusual stirred inside his body. Heat surged through him. The strain of using his powers for the first time overwhelmed his vessel, clouding his vision. The excess was so unbearable that he staggered against the wall, clutching his chest, regretting his actions. A sudden wave of desire overtook him. Someone then appeared on the scene. Chu impulsively kissed her forehead. She was startled to see him in such a state. He pressed his lips against hers as well. Apologetic and confused by his own impulses, he thought bitterly that perhaps killing earlier had triggered this. She held him tightly, assuring him with joy not to apologize and to continue. That night they ended up sharing a bed together. In the aftermath, he admitted to himself that while he didn't seek deep attachments to this world, he also couldn't endure solitude. To him, the only path forward was conquering the world. The next morning at school, he sat at his desk with his head lowered. Tang Xian entered the classroom asking for Chu. He grew anxious at the sight of her. She approached and told him to stop dozing off and join her for lunch. He felt uneasy at how direct women behaved in this world. Tang caught the faint fragrance of another woman on him and questioned it. Chu felt deeply uncomfortable in front of Tang Xian. But before he could explain, she brushed it aside and repeated her invitation to lunch. Flustered, he reluctantly agreed. Relieved, he noted she hadn't picked up on anything suspicious. He knew trouble would follow if she discovered he'd stayed the night with someone else. As they walked together, onlookers buzzed in astonishment. Why would the campus queen invite Chu Ching to lunch? The murmurs and gossip only amplified his discomfort. Curious, Chu asked Tang why she wanted to eat with him. She casually replied that she simply felt like it, nothing more. Then she asked to hold his hand. Chu was baffled. She claimed there were no strings attached, yet now she wanted this closeness. Still, she confidently grasped his hand. Both of them turned red. In a playful moment, Chu pinched her cheek. Tang quickly pulled back, blushing and scolding him, demanding how he dared to pinch her. Chu laughed, teasing her by asking what she could possibly do about it. Tang reflected that, as an heiress, every person she had ever interacted with had been carefully chosen. Never before had she encountered someone like Chu Ching. There was something about him that made her feel secure in a way she couldn't explain, both comforting and confusing at once. Her blush deepened as they continued walking side by side. At the restaurant, Chu ordered 2 bowls of spicy rice noodles, requesting one without cilantro but with extra chili and vinegar. Tang was stunned. How could he know her exact preferences? She even wondered if he had secretly investigated her background. She noticed her own cheeks heating up and questioned why she was blushing so much. Just then, 2 girls walked past them from behind. Something about the girls felt out of place, and he spotted that they were carrying knives. Meanwhile, the staff called his name to collect their order. Chu observed the 2 girls exchange a subtle nod. In the next moment, they discreetly pulled out their blades. Their intent was obvious. They were preparing to strike at Tang. Acting in a split second, just as the knives were about to land, Chu purposely spilled the food he was holding all over them. This broke their momentum and plunged the area into chaos. The confrontation escalated in an instant. Tension rose and Tang Xian's worry for Chu's safety deepened. She urged him to run, insisting that she was the one being targeted. But Chu firmly declared that he would never abandon the woman at his side. Gathering his cultivation force, he charged forward against the assailants with fierce resolve. One of them lunged at him with a flying kick. Chu swiftly retaliated with a heavy punch, sending her crashing to the ground. Another attacker tried to strike him with a palm from behind, but Chu merely smirked and effortlessly slammed her away with devastating force. Tang was stunned by Chu's strength and asked if he came from an old martial family. He shook his head, replying that it wasn't like that, but the details were complicated. He told her to think of him as a wandering warrior. Tang, confused, didn't quite understand. Chu reassured her that explanations could wait. For now, she should contact her family to take over the matter, as staying here was no longer safe. Even though he had sustained injuries, Chu dismissed the concern, insisting it was nothing more than a scratch that would heal quickly. Still, he realized that even mediocre assassins could wound him, which made him consider crafting spiritual artifacts for both defense and offense. While they walked away, Tang pressed him on whether he knew something about her family. She also asked if Li Yue had been bothering. him, Chu waved it off, claiming that someone like Li Yue was far too insignificant to trouble him. Tang looked at him in puzzlement and asked why he had saved her. He couldn't reveal the truth, that she had been his wife in a past life. So instead, he offered the excuse that he felt as though he had known her forever, enough to risk his life for her. Tang's cheeks flushed at his words. Chu added that it might sound like he carried ulterior motives, but all he truly wanted was her trust. He assured her that he could help, knowing the Tang family was facing hardship. Tang then confided that her clan was famous for producing medicines and operated dozens of factories. But recently, their secret formula had been stolen, and rival medicinal families had banded together to pressure them. She added that she had no desire to marry into the Li family. Chu realized the Li clan was not only plotting to ruin the Yi family, but was also aiming to swallow the Tang family whole, recklessly playing with fire. He asked Tang if she believed he could solve her family's crisis. He explained that the solution was straightforward. The Tang family simply needed to develop a brand new medicinal formula. Tang, however, remained doubtful, pointing out that it had taken them 2 decades to create only a handful of formulas. Chu told her not to dwell on it for now, mentioning that an auction would be held in 2 days. By the end of that event, her family would see his worth and they could discuss details then. Suddenly, Chu's body jolted with a heavy throb, startling both him and Tang. He excused himself, telling Tang that he had urgent matters to attend to and would not be returning to class. He asked Ling Dong to request leave on his behalf. Then he called Hua, informing her that something had happened to Changxi, and asked her to trace Changxi's phone and send him the coordinates. Next, he phoned Jiu. Jiu immediately asked if Chu had found another treasure. Chu said no, though the truth was he simply needed a ride. Jiu agreed and asked for the location to pick him up. Making an excuse to his clients, Jiu rushed off to fetch Chu. Once Jiu picked him up, Hua forwarded Changxi's location to Chu. It appeared to still be moving. Chu directed Jiu to follow it. Jiu hit the gas, determined to close the distance quickly. Soon Chu spotted a van with Changxi trapped inside. He ordered Jiu to force the vehicle to stop. Jiu's expert driving cut off the van, blocking its path. Smoke filled the air as 2 Taoists stepped out from the van. Chu already had his sword at the ready. The men raised their guns and aimed directly at him. Shots rang out, but Chu spun his sword, deflecting the bullets with radiant energy that blasted both men off their feet. He strode toward the van and reached for the door. But suddenly, another violent force struck the van. The vehicle erupted in flames, and Chu barely leapt back as the explosion consumed it. Out of the smoke, he saw 2 warriors emerge, individuals far too powerful to be ordinary men. It became clear that this world harbored its own spirit cultivators. One of them addressed Chu, praising his skill at such a young age and inviting him to join their Quanjian sect. Chu laughed mockingly, saying he had heard of Quanjian sect, but it would never produce failures like them. Enraged, another barked at his senior to stop talking and ordered him to kill Chu Ching for his insolent mouth. Chu ridiculed them, saying their meager skills wouldn't be enough. Perhaps they should train a few more years before daring to fight him. His words ignited their fury. One of them began gathering power into his weapon. With a roar, he unleashed the strike, declaring that Chu would regret his insult. Chu summoned his energy, sword flashing. Their clash erupted with a thunderous shockwave of light. The weapons collided in a brilliant explosion. A crack split along the Taoist's salamander rod. He shouted furiously at Chu, demanding how he dared to damage his weapon. Chu leapt forward, sword slashing once more. The Taoist tried to defend with his rod, but this time the weapon shattered in 2. Overcome with rage, the Taoist swung his fist at Chu. Chu's blade sliced through, severing the man's arm. The second Taoist rushed in, changing his weapon to strike at Chu. With a burst of power, Chu countered, emerging with the man's lifeless body gripping him by the neck. He told the survivor that if one truly sought cultivation, then vile deeds had no place in the mortal realm. Tossing the corpse aside, he demanded if this was really what noble cultivators had been taught. The remaining Taoist roared, swearing he would kill Chu, and lunged. But Chu appeared behind him in an instant, driving his sword straight into the man's body. The Taoist gasped, trying to utter something about his sister, but collapsed before finishing the thought. Afterward, Chu rushed to the van to check on Changxi. She was unconscious inside. He gently patted her face to rouse her. When her eyes fluttered open, she weakly asked why he had come, reminding him that even she had been no match against those 2 senior Taoists. Chu drew her into an embrace, calming her, saying everything was safe now. When she noticed the Taoist corpses, she clung tightly to him in shock. Chu asked if she knew who had orchestrated her abduction. Changxi answered firmly that it had to be the Li family, their long-standing enemies. She explained that the Lis had recently declared open war, but whenever her side fought back, mysterious masters would intervene to aid the Li family, forcing her clan into retreat. Chu realized that the Li clan must have joined forces with Taoist cultivators who trained deep within the mountains. These reclusive masters were anything but ordinary, possessing overwhelming strength and moving in ways that defied prediction. Changxi, clearly anxious, assured him she wasn't belittling anyone, and Chu knew at once that matters were looking grim for the Yi family. Chen Qi, growing agitated, added that countless minor families had also begun stirring up trouble against them. Chu connected the dots, suspecting it had to do with the upcoming auction in 2 days, which explained the sudden frenzy among the ancient martial families. There was a strong possibility a rare treasure would surface. Delighted by his insight, Changxi kissed him lightly and called him her lucky star. She then asked him to accompany her back home so they could inform her mother of everything that had happened. Chu patted her gently on the head and agreed to go along. When they arrived, her mother was already seated with 2 other relatives from the family. Changxi's mother welcomed Chu Ching warmly and invited him to take a seat. But Changxi's elder sister suddenly shouted in protest. She demanded to know how her mother could allow an outsider to take part in their confidential discussions, especially since the outsider in question was a man. Chu calmly responded that he had not come here to intrude on their secret meeting. He plainly refused to get involved in their private discussions. Changxi's mother, however, remarked that he was being too nonchalant, as she intended to use this chance to settle his marriage with Changxi. But Chu clarified that his purpose for coming was purely business-related. The elder sister then dragged a stone across the table and picked it up. Dismissing it as just some random rock, she mocked it, but Su explained that he had crafted it himself. It was, in fact, a spiritual stone. He explained that by using it while cultivating, they could actually sense its flow, reinforcing their internal strength. Intrigued, Changxi's mother took the stone in her hand. As she focused on it, she immediately felt an intense surge coursing through it. She eagerly asked how many of these he possessed, saying that if the price was reasonable, she wanted them all. Chu told her directly that they were not available for private sale. He explained that in 2 days' time, the auction would determine the true market value of the stones. Still, if they wished to purchase afterward, they could come directly to him, and he would provide them at a discount in light of his connection with Changxi. He added that he had also prepared something extra, talismans that offered protection and others that granted a temporary boost in battle power. The family was stunned by this revelation and quickly asked how much of a boost in strength these talismans provided. He replied that they could enhance strength by 30%. Changxi's mother then inquired how long they would take to produce and at what cost. Chu assured them that talismans were relatively easy to craft and only required a few days, plus he wasn't making them for profit so they could name their price. However, elixirs would take a week, and he would first deliver a batch to them before they settled on a price. When her aunt questioned why he was going out of his way to help them, he gave a simple answer. It was because Changxi was his friend. Changxi's eyes welled with tears. She confessed that while she had only teased him at the beginning, now she realized that he had truly become her friend and had been selflessly helping her and her family all along. Chu never expected that life in this world would turn out to be so eventful and full of surprises. He had already set his mind on establishing his own business empire in Jinmen after the auction, with the Yi family's support helping spread his reputation. With that, he took his leave and returned home. Upon arrival, he found his family sitting with a woman who turned out to be his second aunt. Her name was Chu Qingui. He greeted her with a forced smile, remarking that he had never even heard of her before. His aunt declared that she was there to discuss his arranged marriage. Chu was astonished and asked why there should be an arranged marriage when he was only 17, still below the legal age for marriage. He explained further that he was still a student in college and marriage could easily wait until after he graduated. She exhaled a puff of smoke with disdain and dismissed his words, claiming that a boy like him attending college was nothing but a waste of money. His aunt then asked his mother about her sister Changxi, and his mother replied that she was at home. Chu realized that Changxi must have returned late the previous night and was still resting. His aunt muttered insults, calling them uneducated. His father quietly got up and went to prepare tea. Chu noticed the suppressed anger etched across his father's face. It made him want to confront his aunt directly. She then suggested to his mother that if Chu were married off to the Liu family's son from Heishi, their lives would face far fewer hardships. Chu, now completely enraged, lost his patience. He slammed his hand hard on the table and spoke with visible fury. With sharp aggression, he declared that she was nothing more than an irritating fly. Offended, she rose to her feet and shouted that if she was unwelcome, she would leave, but not before demanding respect and a proper explanation before the family. She prepared to storm out. Before leaving, she warned him to enjoy his remaining days in college, because soon he would be married. Chu defiantly asked why he should ever listen to her demands. She snapped back that it wasn't his choice to make, that marrying a wealthy woman was the only way to guarantee his family's comfort. With biting sarcasm, he asked if she was perhaps trying to sell herself off. Then he insulted her even further, saying he wasn't as cheap as she was and suggested she try selling her legs instead. Furious beyond control, his aunt turned to his mother and said they should take him to a psychiatrist to figure out why he entertained such twisted thoughts. Completely fed up, Chu stormed off to his room. He shut the door behind him. He then called Changxi to ask for a personal favor. In response, Changxi dispatched 3 women to his aunt's residence. When they found her, they asked Changxi if she wanted only the woman's legs. Changxi coldly ordered them to take her kidney as well. Meanwhile, Chu stood on his terrace, focusing his energy as he continued crafting more spiritual stone pendants. He reflected on how Jinmin had become more stable lately, though problems with his mother's side of the family persisted. Thankfully, he still had time to forge protective artifacts for his loved ones. With a blade in hand, he carefully shaped the stones, channeling his power into every cut. Sparks and light flickered around him as he worked. He recalled that the quality of the jade pendant he had previously sold to Ju was remarkable. It could house a defensive sword array and alert him instantly if the wearer was in danger. After finishing his work, Chu went to join his parents for lunch. His father encouraged him to focus on his studies. Chu, slightly puzzled, reassured them. He told them he understood and urged them not to worry, adding that he would personally handle the problems caused by his mother's relatives. But his father told him there was no need, saying they didn't mind as long as he lived happily. Chu then revealed he had something prepared. He presented them with 3 pendants, one for his father, one for his mother, and one for his sister. His parents were overjoyed, and his father asked where the pendants had come from, noting the warmth and comfort they radiated. Chu improvised an excuse, claiming he had received them from a high priest at a temple. The scene then shifted to his school classroom, where the teacher was in the middle of a lecture. Yet Chu's mind drifted elsewhere, thinking about how his mortal body couldn't withstand crafting artifacts night after night without rest. Exhausted, he eventually dozed off at his desk, until Song Kyoran, a classmate, tried waking him. The teacher noticed and slammed her hand on the desk, jolting Chu awake. She ordered him to stand and come to the board to solve a question. Chu hesitated at first, unsure what to do, but then recalled that Song Kyoran had already explained this problem to him before. Quickly, he wrote down the full solution on the board. Setting down the chalk, he announced that he was finished. The entire class buzzed in amazement, whispering about how he managed to solve the problem after sleeping through the lesson. The teacher admitted that Chu was indeed prepared, but reminded him that it didn't give him the right to sleep in class, and she punished him by sending him outside. Though nervous, Chu realized that in his previous life as a failing student, he had never been treated this way. The teacher, seeing that he didn't hold any specific role in the class, decided to appoint him as the class representative. Annoyed, Chu walked out with his head lowered. His thoughts drifted back to the talismans he had promised to make for the Yi family. Each talisman could block a fatal strike for the wearer, and he estimated their safe value at around 30,000. He wondered how many he could produce in such a short time. Just then, his best friend tapped him on the shoulder and teased him about falling asleep in class. Startled, Chu nearly lost control of the sword in his hand, and it almost flared up. His friend jokingly asked if he was trying to play with fire in the classroom. Chu blew softly on the sword to cool it down, ensuring it hadn't been damaged. Chu then handed the wooden sword to his friend, telling him it would shield him from calamities, but warned him not to reveal it to anyone. His friend was overjoyed at the gift, and in return offered him something. It was nothing more than a half-full bottle of cola. Chu nearly lost his patience at the trade. He shouted in playful annoyance, while his friend apologized and said he had something serious to discuss. He informed Chu that a school sports festival was happening in 2 days and asked if he planned on taking part. Chu replied that he wasn't interested because he was busy. His friend countered that a video of Chu had already gone viral online, and even if he refused, the teacher would probably force him to join anyway. Plus, since it was their final year, he urged that they make some lasting memories. Reluctantly, Chu agreed, which thrilled his friend since he had already placed a wager with someone and was eager to collect on it. At that moment, a girl named Ling Wanner walked into the classroom. Everyone turned their heads in surprise because she was the school idol, admired for her singing and piano skills. She walked straight toward Chu and remarked that he had become quite popular lately, especially since she couldn't believe he had defeated Tang Xian in front of everyone. Chu modestly replied that he had just been in peak condition that day. Ling Wanner then asked him to guess who would be hosting a reunion with their middle school classmates. Chu answered right away, Ju Bukun, leaving Ling stunned as she asked how he knew. Chu explained that Ju always loved the spotlight, so of course he would be the host. Ling invited Chu to join the gathering, and he agreed without hesitation. Pleased, she playfully pinched his cheek. She teased that he looked much more handsome now, which must have been why Tang Xian had fallen so hard for him. Chu, however, found her teasing irritating. His friend, witnessing this, asked when Chu had gotten so close with Ling Wanner, prompting Chu to explain that they had gone to the same elementary and middle school. His friend, awestruck, declared that she was his personal goddess and begged Chu to get her autograph for him. Annoyed, Chu gave him a light punch on the face and told him to ask her himself. His friend admitted that he had never even spoken a word to her, and that just spending one day in her company would be enough to knock him unconscious with happiness. With a weary sigh, Chu left the classroom. He made his way toward Tang Xian. She was struggling helplessly with her homework. She told him that she had spent the entire afternoon stuck on one particular question. Chu began teaching her, walking her through the same problem he had already solved in class. His explanation was straightforward and easy to follow. Soon, other students crowded around, asking for his help with the same problem, but Chu told them he didn't have time. He quickly grabbed Tang Xian by the hand. He told her to come with him, saying that he had something prepared for her. They went together to the school playground. Chu placed a pendant in her hand and instructed her to wear it at all times. Tang Xian studied the pendant, admiring its beauty and value. She hesitated, saying she didn't need such a gift. Chu insisted she keep it, explaining that it carried magic and would keep her safe. Blushing, she gripped his hand tightly and thanked him with heartfelt sincerity. Chu then returned to his classroom. He carefully stored everything in his bag. Now he needed to meet Changxi and find out what price she would set for his items. Just as he was preparing to leave, his friend tapped him on the shoulder once again. He asked if Chu wanted to hang out with them. Chu asked where they were planning to go. His friend grinned, saying it was somewhere exciting. Chu declined and left the classroom. He went straight to Changxi's residence. When she saw him, she ran up and hugged him tightly. Overjoyed, she confessed she had been terribly bored. Catching a strange scent on him, she teased by asking if he had been with another woman. Chu quickly shook his head and assured her he hadn't, explaining that he was only there on business. He handed her a pendant, saying it was a gift and completely free. Curious, she asked what it was. To demonstrate, Chu threw a glass toward her. The pendant activated instantly, releasing a protective force that shattered the glass before it could touch her. Chu explained that the pendant was a defensive artifact that would automatically trigger in danger, making it far superior to ordinary charms. Excited, Changxi jumped onto him. She playfully declared that he was far too amazing. The impact knocked Chu down, and she warned him not to think that this gift gave him an excuse to flirt with other women. Smirking, Chu gently pushed her away and told her he still had business to handle elsewhere. He reassured her there was no need to worry. After that, Chu went to Hua's apartment. Finding the door unlocked, he entered and found her asleep. Traces of tears stained her cheeks from a nightmare. He gently woke her up. The moment she saw him, she threw her arms around him. Crying, she told him she had dreamed of her mother leaving her again, and begged him not to disappear without warning. For a moment, Chu thought about the possibility of one day returning to his original world, but he brushed the thought aside. He comforted Hua, promising her he would never abandon her. Relieved, she wiped away her tears, smiled, and warned him not to dare leave her. Otherwise, she would kiss him and then bite him to death. He spent time by her side. Eventually, he decided it was best to return home for the weekend, knowing his father would be upset if he stayed away too long. As he was about to leave, he noticed her computer screen. Curious, he leaned closer. He discovered she had been researching information on Jinmen's ancient martial arts. He blushed, realizing she had painstakingly gathered all of this information for his sake. He placed a pendant beside her bed. Then he kissed her forehead gently. As he stepped outside, his phone rang. It was his father speaking in a serious tone. His father asked where he was, then told him that his mother was already on her way to pick him up. Nervously, Chu answered that he was near Beizhou Market. Not long after, his mother arrived. He commented on how quickly she got there, and she replied that she had already been nearby. She then asked where he had been and mentioned she could smell perfume on him. Feeling guilty, he explained that he had been at a friend's birthday party with a group of classmates. His mother said birthday parties were fine, but warned him not to be alone with a girl. She then lit a cigarette. Surprised, he remarked that he thought she had quit smoking. She explained that she was only trying to mask the scent of perfume on him, warning that if his father noticed, it would cause serious trouble. Chu thanked his mother, then received a notification. It was confirmation that the Yi family had transferred him 1.2 million just for the talisman. He thought to himself that if creating a few artifacts from another world could earn so much, then producing elixirs would be even more profitable. He envisioned himself building an empire on this alone. Meanwhile, his mother whispered that if he ever caught his father smoking again, he should tell her. Chu nodded. He then messaged Jialiu saying he had something for him and asked if he was available. Jialiu said yes. They met up soon after. Jialiu asked why Chu would give him such a precious treasure. Chu told him not to worry about reasons, saying it wasn't worth explaining. Jialiu was touched and thanked him deeply. He told Chu that it was the first time someone had treated him with genuine sincerity and wanted to be his friend. Chu asked what made him feel that way. Jialiu explained that he grew up with his father and for a long time it had only been the two of them. It wasn't until middle school that his father revealed his mother was part of an influential family. After that, he was taken to live with her and enrolled in an elite school. But the students there looked down on him. One girl even asked if he was born out of wedlock. Jialiu went on, saying that even though they sometimes gave him a chance to prove himself, the contempt in their eyes never changed. Chu responded that while his experiences were different, his life had not been comfortable either. He revealed that his own mother also came from a powerful family, but because her family despised his father, his parents had run away together. Lately, his mother's relatives had tracked them down and were forcing his parents to arrange a marriage for him, with a wealthy woman weighing at least 200 kilograms. Jiu burst into uncontrollable laughter, exactly as Chu had anticipated. That day Jiu was in high spirits and insisted they drink through the night, refusing to let Chu leave until both were thoroughly drunk. They drank to the point where Chu could barely climb the stairs to his own home. As he drew near, he spotted his sister trying to sneak inside through the doorway. He tapped her on the shoulders, startling her into a shout. He quickly covered her mouth with his hand, but she instantly caught the scent of alcohol on him. She teased him, remarking that a young man who drank until midnight like that wouldn't stand a chance at marrying a rich girl. All at once she collapsed, fainting straight into his arms. He carried her inside and gently laid her on her bed. Feeling dizzy and sick, he dropped onto the bed beside her. As he did so, his hand accidentally landed on her chest, soft and ticklish beneath his fingers. She murmured, "Xiafeng, don't be shy." Startled, he snapped his eyes open and demanded to know who Xiafeng was. She moved in to kiss him, but he shouted and jumped away from the bed. Realizing then and there that alcohol was not for him, he swore he would never drink again. The next morning, he went to a clothing showroom to buy outfits for a reunion. Everyone there kept saying how handsome he looked, even claiming he could debut as a star with that appearance. He told the salesperson to send all the clothes he had tried on directly to his home. Now he only needed a car so he wouldn't have to keep depending on Jiu. Just as he was about to leave, a boy's voice called out to him. From behind, someone asked if he still remembered his old classmate. He realized it was Jiu Bukun. He asked Jiu why he was out shopping when he normally preferred staying home, then invited him to the class reunion he'd organized. Jiu agreed to come, mentioning that Lin Wan had told him about it 2 days earlier, and said he would wait for him that night. Chu grew irritated. People were whispering that he only changed his underwear once a week. A girl walked up and said his expression made him look like a virgin, while another joked that although he might appear innocent, deep down he was actually a pervert. Chu quickly realized it was Jiu Bukun who had spread these rumors. Chu went out walking along the road and heard a vendor proclaiming the shop's 10th anniversary, announcing discounts on all cars. He was thrilled since he'd been thinking of buying one. He approached as the seller showed him a vehicle. He disliked the red sports car because it felt too cramped for him. He asked if there was something more masculine and less delicate. At last he found a black car that appealed to him. People nearby whispered that a kid buying a car must have someone wealthy bankrolling him. Chu was furious. He felt insulted at the assumption that a young man with money must have received it as a gift, rather than earning it himself. After that he prepared and headed for the venue. It was the same place where he and Jiu often ate. He opened the door and stepped inside, where everyone was playing, eating, and having fun. He tried to keep his composure, knowing he had to get used to scenes like this. He went to a table and sat down with 10 others. He asked one of them about Lin Wan, who had invited him there. She replied by asking how he could possibly understand her situation, then explained that because Chu had arrived dressed so well, Jiu Bukun would lose the bet he made. He'd bet Chu would show up in his school uniform, and if wrong, he would treat everyone to meals for a week. Chu remarked on his poor judgment, saying that even after seeing him buy new clothes, he still made such a bet. At that moment, Jiu Bukun was standing right behind him. Tang commented that Jiu probably assumed Chu wouldn't actually buy anything. Chu called out to Jiu Bukun, announcing he knew Joe would be treating everyone to meals for a week, and telling him not to forget about him. Joe replied that of course, next week everyone would be eating at the school canteen. The crowd erupted happily at the news, but Jua was seething at Chu Ching. Tang noted that Joe was clever, cutting costs by restricting the meals to the school canteen for a week. Chu said Jiu had started the bet and lost, so he should pay up. Everyone continued enjoying themselves. Jua then announced that first and second year middle school students would be preparing for the Olympic Games, and he planned to form a boys' basketball team. Since enough had shown interest, he wanted Chu Ching to join. Chu answered that he wasn't interested. Tang, irritated with Zhou, said, "Why did you tell people Chu only plays a little basketball? Everyone knows he beat me. Are you claiming he doesn't know how to play properly?" Zhou denied ever saying that. Tang pressed the point. Zhou responded that he himself had no issue, it was Chu Ching who did. Tang then asked Chu what he thought of the situation. He said he thought it was just right. Then he asked her to open her mouth because he wanted to feed her himself. Tang blushed happily and accepted the bite. Zhou watched with jealousy rising. Tang asked Chu to join the basketball team. He replied he would if she truly wanted him to, but only on one condition: she had to kiss him. She agreed and asked for a French kiss. They kissed and Tang told him that since he had agreed, he must win, promising a very special reward. Everyone cheered, teasing Tang that she now had a boyfriend and must invite them somewhere. She laughed and invited them all. Chu then invited everyone for dessert at a nearby restaurant. People praised Tang for having such a generous boyfriend, saying naturally she wouldn't look at any other boys now. She asked Chu if he was sure about inviting them. He told her to relax, reminding her she was his girlfriend now and he wouldn't let her down. She joked that he might become more famous than any girl. Jua grew even more irritated. This gathering had been supposed to center on him, but Chu had come prepared. Meanwhile, everyone was laughing and enjoying their desserts. Just then Lin Wan entered. Zhou asked if she had finished her task. She answered yes, she had something important to handle. Lin waved to Chu Ching and walked over to him, clearly happy that he had come. He told her it wasn't nice to keep him away. A boy remarked that their pianist couldn't come and asked Jubu Kun to play for them. Jua said he had passed level 6 piano exams playing on his own and also asked Lin Wan to perform her dance. She agreed without hesitation. Lin pointed toward Chu and said her dance would be dedicated to her best friend. Everyone around started shouting that Chu was lucky to have the affection of two goddesses at once, both supporting him. Annoyed, Ju sat there, playing piano while Lin Wan danced. Smoothly, Chu remarked to Tang that the kid played piano quite well. She asked him about Ling Wanner. He realized Tang was feeling jealous. Tang grew irritated, saying why wasn't he watching her dance? She was dancing for him, he shouldn't disappoint her. They kept talking and laughing. Zhou watched him enjoying himself with Tang. He thought the girl he liked was dancing for him, yet here she was chatting with another man. Chor shouted at Chu, asking if he even knew what respect meant. Chu replied that whether he played piano or not was his own decision. Likewise, whether he listened to it or not was also his choice. He shouldn't be rushed. Zhu told him he didn't care about Chu's attention to him, but what about Lin Wan? She was dancing for him. Zhu stood and paused, waved at Lin Wan and took a drink. Lin Wan smiled at him and continued dancing. Jor yelled angrily again, asking why he was laughing and if he knew the rules of watching a performance. Chu said the piece he was playing was mediocre, that his own whistling music sounded far better, and if he played like that he'd rather cut off his own hand. Zhu declared that Chu would regret his words and would eventually have to kneel down to apologize. Chu Chin retorted that if Zhou lost, then he should be prepared to wager his own hands. Chua was utterly stunned. Meanwhile, the audience continued to enjoy the performance. They were captivated by the melody. The music carried them away as if they were strolling through a blossoming garden. It was a celestial tune, one Chu had mastered during his transition toward godhood in his former life. For everyone there, it was the first time hearing something so breathtaking, and JWO Buk Kun was in serious trouble. Chu Ching loomed before Zhou like an ominous shadow. His presence alone made Zhu tremble with fear. Suddenly, Lin stepped forward and blocked his path. Chu asked if she was trying to plead for Zhou's forgiveness. At that point, Tang spoke up. She reminded him that they were all classmates, urging Chu not to intimidate Zhu like that, warning that otherwise there could be consequences. Carried by the fury of the song, Chu momentarily forgot he was no longer in the divine realm. He spotted a knife on the table and picked it up. Jor froze in terror at the sight of the blade in Chu's hand. Overcome with fear, Jiel stumbled backward as Chu hurled the knife toward him. Su told Zhou plainly that he was no longer someone to be bullied, and Zhou needed to remember that. Shaking, Zhou admitted that Chu was being too ruthless. Chu demanded to know what Zhou had lost and asked if Zhou thought begging would make him relent. He said he only knelt before his parents and Zhou was not worthy of such respect. Chu declared he never wanted to see Zhu again, trembling in fear. Zhu bolted and the others in the room were left shaken. Shu then said that since the nuisance was gone, they could now enjoy themselves. Tang muttered that it was getting harder to understand him with each passing day. In the end, the gathering concluded, and Chu sat inside his car. He noticed the smell of alcohol lingering on him, realizing he couldn't return home like that. He called his sister and told her he wasn't coming back that night, instructing her to take care of their parents and cover for him. She flatly refused to lie for him. He replied that if she helped him, he would repay her later, With that promise she agreed. Then he knew Hua must already be awake by now. So he headed straight to her apartment. When he arrived, he found the door ajar. He stepped inside and saw a man clutching her hand forcefully. The two men locked eyes and the stranger asked, turning to Hua to demand who he was. Chu pulled her into his embrace and declared Hua was his girlfriend, then demanded to know who the man was. The man claimed to be her father and said she owed him 3 million yuan, asking if Chu could pay it. Hua shouted that it was a lie. He was the one who owed her 3 million, which he had gambled away. Her father countered that whether he owed her or not, she was still his daughter and had to cover his debt. She screamed at him, flung her card in his face, and ordered him never to return. He sneered that it wasn't enough, adding he would demand the rest from her boyfriend. She told him Chu had no money, that he was just a student. Her father spat back, calling her shameless for seducing a student, and accused Chu of living off her money. She fired back that if Chu had money, he would never even notice her. The father seized her hand and told her to leave Chu if he had no wealth. He would find her a rich, older man. He even said that if she sold her body she would suffer little, only needing to spend a night with wealthy men without marrying them. Chu yanked her back toward him and told her father he would pay him 3 million, but in return he must sever all ties and never disturb her again. Her father's face lit up, asking if Chu was serious. Hua tried to stop him, but Chu reassured her not to worry, insisting he could handle it. Greed overtook her father, and he demanded 5 million instead of 3. Hua shouted at him in outrage. Chu demanded he sign a document severing their father-daughter bond, promising to pay immediately. He refused, saying he would only promise not to look for her anymore. She told him whatever he chose to write was his problem, but if he couldn't sell her by morning, then the deal was void. Panicking, he demanded the papers, saying he was ready to sign. He signed the document and then asked for the money. Chu told him not to be impatient and picked up Cub, transforming it into a weapon and hurling it straight at him. Her father was stunned by Chu's power and was wounded by the strike. Chu warned him that he would transfer the money into his account, but if he dared to bother her again, he had countless ways to silence him without anyone knowing. Her father, terrified, agreed and left. Hua threw her arms around Chu and vowed she would repay every bit of the 5 million. He told her not to worry, that such an amount was nothing to him. With tears streaming down her face, she leaned in and kissed him. Afterward, they lay down together. That night, they slept in each other's arms. The next morning, when Chu opened his eyes, he found her watching him and asked why she was awake so early. She told him to get up and wash, saying she had something to show him. Hua had made him breakfast, her face glowing with joy. She radiated happiness as she served him. Chu was taken aback by her tenderness and asked why she was treating him this way. She replied that it was because she couldn't bear the thought of losing him. He comforted her, saying there was no need to worry and she should simply be herself. While she was washing the dishes, he noticed her determination, though he also realized his back was aching. Just then he received a message. It informed him the problem had been resolved. He thanked the sender, promising to repay the favor soon and never forget. Later, he went to the school playground and saw the boys fumbling clumsily, unable even to catch the ball properly. Tang was seated nearby, so he walked over and asked whether the boys were really playing basketball or just chasing the ball, since they clearly weren't playing well. She answered that they couldn't even reach the girls' level, noting that even the best players from other schools faced the same difficulty. Changing the subject, she asked what he had been working on. Chu mentioned he had created a new medicinal formula. He showed her a slip of paper and explained it was a formula that could help mages strengthen their magic. Tang asked why he trusted her so much, wondering if he wasn't afraid she might steal the formula and run away. He told her he only wanted to help her and wasn't concerned about money. She admitted she was truly falling for him. Chu teased her, asking if that meant she hadn't liked him before. She confessed that earlier she had only found him intriguing. Then she kissed him. Just then, a basketball came flying toward them, and Chu caught it. He blamed her, saying it was all her fault. She had a fan club, and they opposed the idea of the two of them being together. She shouted at the boys, punishing them by ordering 50 laps around the court. The scene then shifted to Chu's house, where he was studying. His mother walked in and quietly took a seat. She sat down right beside him. She mentioned that she wanted to ask something important, and then directly questioned if there was a girl he liked. He answered nervously that yes, there was indeed someone, but pressed her on why she was suddenly bringing such a topic up. She explained that the girl was most likely from a powerful household, noting it wasn't surprising since the Ye family had been assisting her company recently. She reassured him that she didn't care as long as he truly married someone he loved, and emphasized that she never intended to keep things hidden from him. Then she revealed that the aunt he had met just a few days ago was actually her half-sister, and that her family consisted of 7 or 8 members. She added that her second aunt had suffered an accident, which had delayed their original plans. Still, the family was not about to let the matter go. She confessed that she felt helpless, unable to shield him from it all. Chu questioned why the family couldn't just act amicably for once. His mother then asked if he was considering marrying Changxi as a way to escape an arranged marriage, and followed by asking if he knew about the National University. He responded that he did, acknowledging it as one of the most powerful institutions in the nation. She explained that if he truly wanted to reject an arranged marriage and take control of his own fate, then getting admitted into that university was the only path. Once enrolled, even the Chu family wouldn't dare defy the university's authority. Chu said he would give it everything he had to succeed. Chu understood well that the National University carried extraordinary prestige across the world. Its foundation circles were immensely strong, and it supplied vast resources to the empire, holding invaluable information. He desired to uncover the mysteries hidden there, believing its cultivation standards equaled that of the immortal realms. While training and studying about the National University, Chu also focused on forging a sword. To his amazement, the sword began to undergo a transformation. He realized that if the rust on the blade remained, the aftermath could be unimaginably dire. Determined, he knew he had to quickly find a suitable bowl to conceal it. Just then, his phone suddenly rang. It was Jiu, scolding him for not showing up at the auction after having reminded him repeatedly. Chu recalled that he had seen Jiu's message earlier while in the classroom, but had dozed off. His thoughts then shifted toward finding spiritual material forged from divine gold that could serve as the perfect sheath for his sword. Soon after, he made his way to the Shijin auction house. There he spotted Zhai together with her family. This made him suspect that the Jiu family wanted to link him with well-known women. As he entered, he noticed the crowd ridiculing him, sneering at how someone like him could attend such an auction, throwing disparaging remarks his way. He retorted sharply, saying this was the Jiu family's domain, and if they realized what kind of people were acting this way, their reputation would collapse. One of the women lunged forward to strike him, but he swiftly caught her hand. Holding her wrist, he remarked that he hadn't intended to speak in such a manner at all. She had provoked it first. Then he twisted her arm firmly. Panic spread among the others, and they quickly shouted for security. Jiu arrived right then, declaring that Chu was like a brother to him, and that insulting Chu was no different from insulting the Jiu family itself. He warned the group that from this moment forward, they were permanently banned from Shijin auction house. Frightened, they began pleading and apologizing, insisting they hadn't known. Jiu then apologized directly to Chu for the poor reception. As an exception, Jiu asked if Chu's mother was truly from the Chu family of the imperial capital. Chu confirmed it. Jiu went on to inform him that his aunt had lost a leg and a kidney, and that someone from the Chu family had purchased that intelligence. He hinted that both Chu's relatives and others had a hand in this. Chu asked who had committed the murder, but Jiu confessed there were no clues yet, as the case was still under investigation. A deep worry struck Chu, realizing that he still didn't fully grasp the standing of the Chu family in the imperial capital. At that very moment, Changxi arrived with her mother. Chu felt genuine joy upon seeing them. Montai mentioned she had heard Chu was preparing for the university entrance exams, and advised him to dedicate himself fully to his studies. Chu understood her concerns regarding his relationship with Jiu, and reassured her not to worry about it. Changxi nudged her mother ahead, signaling that she had something private to tell Chu Ching. She embraced him warmly, delighted to see him once more. Jiu reminded them that the auction was about to begin, urging them to head inside. Shou advised him not to take Aunt Ye's words too literally. Jiu reassured that he wasn't, adding that Aunt Ye only cared because she regarded him as her favored son-in-law. He then suggested they proceed to their private room first. Changxi asked Chu if the spiritual stone he had mentioned would truly appear in the auction. He confirmed it, adding that he had 5 in his possession. He handed her a cup of milk tea while he poured wine for himself, forgetting that in this world women preferred alcohol over soft drinks. Changxi said if he disliked seeing her drink, she could stop. He replied that he didn't mind at all. She pulled him closer, suggesting they should drink. Drink as much as they wished, just the two of them together. Catching the scent of her perfume, he realized her intentions toward intimacy were sincere. She teased him by saying she had purchased special clothing and bunny ears, just like he had requested before. And with a mischievous grin, she told him to picture her wearing them. Suddenly, she pushed him down and climbed on top, making him incredibly tense. He couldn't deny how alluring she looked. Her body pressed against his, tempting him without mercy. She leaned in and kissed him deeply. At that exact moment, Jiu entered through the door. He quickly apologized for interrupting. Closing the door behind him, he told them to continue. But Changxi told Chu to forget it and suggested they return to what they were doing. Chu gently pushed her aside, reminding her the auction was about to start, promising they could continue next time. She asked if he was feeling embarrassed now. He replied that had Jiu not barged in, he would have left her utterly defenseless. Jiu stood just outside the door. When he re-entered, he apologized once more for the intrusion, explaining that he had to deliver important information. He handed them a list of all items in the auction. Chu looked through the list, but saw nothing forged from divine golden material that could aid in unsealing his sword. Yet his attention was caught by a meteorite listed among the items. Though small, Chu warned not to underestimate it. Its density was such that it contained hundreds of kilograms within, and if ordinary guns were forged from it, they would transform into magical weapons. He added that the meteorite remained scorching hot, and when he studied it, he nearly burned himself. Chu suggested it could be fashioned into a pan that harnesses energy without pollution. The comment made Changxi laugh. Chu snatched the list back from Chu, remarking that his expectations were too lofty. He then showed it to Changxi, asking if there was anything she fancied. She pointed toward an old wine jar, explaining that the wine had aged for countless years, and drinking it could massively boost one's strength. Chu asked if she wanted it, but she declined, explaining that since everyone would fight for it, even if she acquired it, she couldn't protect it. Chu then realized it wasn't the wine that mattered, but the vessel holding it. That bowl was the material he had been searching for. Chu teased that if they begged, he might reluctantly allow them to see the real item. Chu stood up, thinking if that bronze pot was truly a spirit material, it would demand serious consideration. Chu was taken aback to see the auction suddenly commence, with Tang Xian opening at 100 million. The announcer repeated, 100 million once for the Tang family's elixir formula. Chu asked who was selling the Tang family's recipe and guessed it might be the Li family. Chu clarified that it was actually part of the Tang family's internal conflict. Stepping outside the room, Chu caught sight of Changxi secretly sneaking a drink. Embarrassed, she admitted she couldn't resist, but promised that if it bothered him, she would stop. Irritated, Chu asked if she cared about anything beyond fooling around with men. He touched his forehead, noted his temperature was normal, but remarked that she seemed like a completely different person. She questioned what was wrong with thinking about relationships, asking if he didn't value them at all. Chu reminded her of the time he had asked her to teach a lesson to a certain woman and her friends. That incident had ended with her mother killing the woman. Changxi refused to believe that her mother had done such a thing. Chu urged her to reconsider. As the heir of the Yi family, her mother hadn't given her any genuine power. After Aunt Yi was assaulted and nearly killed, Changxi had sensed the danger and was reluctantly pulled into family affairs. He pointed out that she knew very little about her own family and seemed indifferent toward the chaos within the Tang family. He challenged her, asking what she would do if she became head of her household and faced the same struggles. Changxi said he sounded just like her mother, warning that if he kept talking like this, he wouldn't be charming anymore. Chu shouted her name sharply. He explained that he didn't want her to end up dying without ever truly knowing herself. If that happened, he would be the one left to arrange her funeral and take revenge. To her, all this talk was simply bothersome. She was certain he would never abandon her, but he firmly declared that he could ignore her if necessary. Despite her confidence, his resolve remained unshaken. He selected the spot on the sofa to sit. His mind replayed her words, leaving him thoroughly annoyed with her. Chu entered at that moment, reporting that his 5 artworks had fetched 5 million, and after deducting the 2 million commission, 3 million would be his share. Chu then asked if he preferred to receive the payment in cash or as credit. Chu inquired about who the final purchaser of Xinjiang was. Chu admitted he knew, but due to auction regulations, he could not reveal the buyer's identity. Chu quickly apologized, clarifying that his real concern was with the bronze vessel, not with Changxiang himself. Chu was caught off guard, suddenly wondering if the bronze container might actually be some priceless treasure he had misjudged. He had thought he understood Chu Ching, yet the man remained wrapped in mystery. It startled him even more when Chu laughed lightly, saying that although the bronze pot was indeed a treasure, to him it held no real value. He added that Chu should not waste his professional expertise on him in such matters. Chu rose from his seat and made to leave. Chu called out, asking why he was departing so soon when he had intended to take him somewhere enjoyable. Chu replied that he needed to return home, finish his assignments, and attend class the following day. Chu chuckled, remarking that he had almost forgotten Chu was still a student. Chu then got into a car to make his way home, silently hoping that his father had not discovered he had gone out. Still, satisfaction filled him, for he had accomplished what he intended at the auction. He believed that with the bronze pot in hand, the sheath problem would finally be resolved. Now all that remained was to establish an alliance as strong as the auction house or the Ye family. After all, he was no longer a lone swordsman drifting without ties in this world. He now had a family, companions and allies, and people he deeply cherished. For their sake, he needed to fight and carve out a kingdom of his own in this world. While he was driving back, he suddenly noticed a storm brewing along with a murderous aura that forced him to retreat and conceal himself. He slipped quietly into the tall grass, From there, he saw a group of figures gathered. Among them stood a girl in a purple robe, her aura far more dominant than the rest. An elderly woman warned her that the object had already been rightfully purchased at the auction, yet the girl intended to kill for it anyway. They mentioned having heard about this through Changxi. It turned out the police could not restrain the ancient martial artists, so the government had created the Jiangwu department to keep them in line. A representative of Jianwu accused the martial artists of abusing their strength to strip their nation of its treasures, demanding whether they felt no shame. The old woman retorted that the purple-robed girl hardly seemed like an official and asked where her judgment order was. Chu understood immediately that this judgment order was the authorization token that allowed the Jianwu department to act. The girl merely laughed mockingly and prepared to launch her attack on the old woman. Terrified, the old lady struck out first. Her desperate blow landed, but it was futile. The girl slaughtered them all without mercy. She then pulled the bronze pot from within the car. Chu was stunned. It was the very same item from the auction. The girl sensed his presence and demanded he reveal himself. Chu stepped out hesitantly, claiming he was only passing by. She smiled coldly, saying she believed him. She returned the bronze pot back into the car, but in the next instant she suddenly lunged at him. Her intent was clear: he had to die. Chu caught her hand mid-strike. Drawing his sword, he remarked that such irritability was unbecoming of a woman. With a swift motion, he struck the ground. The impact sent her body soaring through the air. She twisted midair and kicked him square in the face. He retaliated with a punch, sending her crashing down wounded. He told her plainly that if she truly wanted to silence him, she would have to try much harder. Furious, the woman screamed at him, demanding if he wished to die. She staggered up and drew a gun, leveling it. The weapon glinted dangerously in her hand. The murderous aura it radiated was terrifyingly intense. She fired at him without hesitation. Chu quickly formed a defensive seal around himself, deflecting the bullets. Believing he had been killed, the woman lowered her guard. She returned to the vehicle to retrieve the pot, but before she could, a blade pierced her from behind. The sudden stab left her frozen in shock. She realized too late that Chu had survived. The woman collapsed lifeless to the ground. As Chu absorbed the residual energy, another strike came from behind, sinking painfully into his shoulder. He sensed the murderous aura contained in the bullets, attempting to seal it with his power. Agony racked him as the sealing failed. Even if he managed to suppress it, the aura would soon burst free and attempt to kill him again. The gun itself appeared ordinary, but the true threat was embedded within the bullets. They had been crafted specifically to target martial artists. Later, inside a quiet room, Hua was at her computer. She opened the door only to find Chu collapsing at the threshold, his body utterly broken and bleeding. Alarmed, she begged to take him to the hospital. He refused, telling her not to worry, that he would not die, and asked her instead to cut away the rotten flesh from his wound. She placed him on the bed, took hold of a knife, but her hands trembled so badly that she could not bring herself to do it. She whispered that Changxi would surely be able to handle this. At that moment, Changxi arrived, ready to take over. Hua, terrified, handed the knife to Changxi when asked. Changxi immediately began the grim task. Chu screamed in torment as the blade cut. Changxi scolded him, saying he always rushed into danger yet could not even bear this much pain. At last she completed the procedure. Chu slumped back. His chest heaved with heavy breaths. Hua asked anxiously if he was feeling any better, but Changxi reassured her not to worry, he would be fine. Chu found it painfully awkward that Hua had been too frightened to touch him and had instead asked Changxi to do it. Changxi then told Hua to fetch some water for Chu. After Hua left, Changxi closed the door and her demeanor shifted sharply. She demanded to know if Chu had been seeing Hua behind her back. Chu froze nervously. He countered, asking why she could have multiple men around her, yet he could not have more than one woman. Changxi pressed him. Did that mean if she courted other men, he truly would not mind? Her tone grew firm as she declared she had every right, whether he approved or not, calling him hypocritical for holding double standards. Chu argued that society itself was unfair, and if she could not accept that, she was free to leave him at any time. Even as he said it, guilt weighed heavily on him. Changxi pinched his ears and demanded why he had chosen Hua's place instead of hers. She wondered aloud whether she could really walk away so easily. Chu. She pressed further, asking why he had not told her what happened the night before. He finally admitted that he had killed a messenger from Jianwu. Hua was stunned at his words, the glass of water slipping from her grasp, while Changxi was equally shaken. Chu explained calmly that the messenger had tried to kill him, and he had no choice but to strike back. Changxi's eyes caught sight of the bullet wound, and she asked how he had managed to survive being hit by a Wang Chuan. Chu raised an eyebrow, asking what that was. She then explained that Wang Chuan bullets were a nightmare for martial artists, rarely produced in short supply, and not even every officer in the Jiangwu department possessed them. she asked. About the messenger's rank, Chu admitted he didn't know, only that she wore a purple robe. Changxi explained the ranking system: red, yellow, green, and purple, purple being the lowest. Normally, only a green-ranked messenger had the right to carry such a bullet. Changxi shook her head, saying it was incredible misfortune for Chu to encounter a purple-ranked messenger carrying a Wang Chuan. Chu then asked how martial artists were ranked. She looked at him in surprise, not believing he truly didn't know. Then she explained, martial artists were divided into 5 great domains: Ru, Wu, Jai, Hua, and Shen, with each domain containing 9 levels. Chu asked what level she had reached, and she replied that she was at Ru Domain 9, on the verge of stepping into Wu. Just then, Chu's phone rang, and he scrambled to get ready for school, worried that his father might have discovered he was out late the night before. But Changxi pushed him back down onto the bed, insisting he wasn't going anywhere with such a wound and needed several days of rest. Hua nodded in agreement. Chu unwrapped his bandages to show that the wound had already healed. Changxi was astonished at how fast his body had recovered. She demanded to know how he had stopped the Wang Chuan's aura from spreading. She admitted that learning how to counter Wang Chuan was the dream of every martial artist, and begged him to teach her. Chu told her he would teach her later, but for now he had to get to class, and then he left. Changxi screamed in frustration, slamming the door behind him. Hua fidgeted nervously, thinking Changxi's anger might somehow be her fault. Meanwhile, Chu arrived at school, where the teacher was lecturing while he dozed off at his desk. Teacher Tong Fei caught him sleeping and scolded him, ordering him to stand outside while she called his parents. Terrified, Chu pleaded with her not to. She snapped at him for talking back, saying it didn't matter if he didn't care to study, disturbing others was the real problem. The class president, Song Kaoran, apologized on Chu's behalf, admitting fault himself. Chu then sincerely acknowledged his mistake and promised never to disturb others again with his sleeping. The teacher reprimanded them both, warning Song Kaoran that if she didn't place in the top 10 on the upcoming exam, her parents would be summoned. She added that she would let Song's parents see how she was wasting her time at school for the sake of a boy. Chu immediately offered to take the exam in her place. The teacher allowed it but added another punishment. Chu had to write a reflection essay to be read aloud at the Monday assembly, showing everyone the dangers of young romance, which left both Chu and Song Kaoran completely stunned. At that moment, Chu realized Song Kaoran had feelings for him. Her cheeks were burning red. One of the girls rushed off to tell Tang Xian, accusing Chu of cheating on her. Soon, Tang Xian and her closest friends confronted Song Kaoran, berating her for daring to steal Tang's man. Song stood frozen, intimidated by their presence. Tang then demanded to see Chu Ching. Spotting him slumped over his desk, head down, mistaking his posture for crying, she approached gently and asked if he was all right. Chu suddenly woke, saying he was only very sleepy. Tang explained she had heard the rumors and had come to take him out for lunch. Chu remarked on how quickly gossip traveled. At that moment, Song Kaoran approached and offered a heartfelt apology. Chu admitted that falling asleep in class had caused her trouble, then asked directly if she truly liked him. Song Kaoran didn't answer but blushed furiously, which told him enough. Chu pulled her into a light hug, saying he was only teasing and that she was a good woman who would always be his friend. He even laughed, saying this was the first time in his life he had ever friend-zoned someone. Tang's heart sank as she watched. Later, the three of them went out for lunch with Tang's close friend, Tao Yuniao. Tao scolded Chu for hugging another girl in front of Tang and demanded he apologize. Chu shot back that Tao should apologize to him instead, considering how many admirers constantly surrounded her. Tao teased, asking if Chu was jealous because Tang wasn't spoiling him. Chu answered that he didn't need to be spoiled, he should be the one spoiling her. Tao barely managed to hold back her laughter. Tang added that if Chu truly wanted to stand beside her, he needed to be stronger than her. Chu agreed without hesitation. Tao then warned him to keep his distance from other women and change his reckless behavior, speaking in a gentler tone. Chu brushed her words aside, pulling Tang closer, saying that if he really had to avoid all women, then he'd have to avoid her as well. Tang dismissed Tao, who got up and left. Tang turned to Chu, asking if he was upset with her. Chu answered that he wasn't like anyone else, and that she shouldn't expect anything ordinary from him. Taking her hand, he assured her of his genuine feelings, promising that she could always rely on him. Her heart lifted with happiness, but then she revealed something unsettling. The formula he had given her had been tested in her lab, and the results showed it was actually a poison. A poison that, strangely enough, could aid in martial cultivation. Chu was stunned. He swore the formula was meant to enhance cultivation. Tang replied that poison still held great value and she would take it, asking him to name his price. Chu told her to simply take it, still unconvinced it was poison, as he wanted to investigate further. Tang's expression shifted, misunderstanding him. She thought he was trying to buy her affection with the formula. Chu clarified that he wasn't and asked again what she was willing to pay. Tang offered 200 million. Chu was floored, realizing how wealthy he could become if he sold it. He then asked to purchase some herbs from her, explaining that Aunt Yi needed more elixirs, and he considered buying them directly from the Tang family. Tang advised him not to let it slip that he was crafting elixirs, warning that while few in the country possessed such skill, it seemed he might have that talent. As Chu began eating, Tang dabbed delicately at her face, preparing to try the food herself. Chu stopped her abruptly, asking what she thought she was doing. Tang smiled and said that moments like this must embarrass him. Then she urged him to quit martial training altogether. If it was only for self-defense, she would protect him. After all, his health already seemed fragile from the side effects of training. She handed him a healing medicine from her family's stores, and rested her hand gently on his leg, telling him she didn't want him practicing anymore, especially because she refused to see her future husband rendered infertile. The idea that ancient martial cultivation could lead to infertility hit him like a lightning strike. Later, he returned home, wondering if his father had noticed he had stayed out the previous night. His father seized him by the collar and smacked him for coming home late. Changxi arrived just in time, explaining that she had been drunk the night before and Chu had only stayed to take care of her. Chu panicked, scolding Changxi for saying such a thing, fearing his father might get the wrong idea. His father called him a foolish cabbage. Chu asked Changxi why she had come to see him. She handed him another healing medicine from the Tang family, remarking that it didn't seem like he needed it. She then hinted openly that she expected him to be Tang's boyfriend. Chu accepted the medicine but told Changxi he didn't need every gift she brought. What he did need, however, was to teach her the method for suppressing Wang Chuan's aura immediately. She asked if the technique was truly more important than his own life. They clasped hands and Chu began, passing on the technique. As he did, a mystical glow enveloped them. A stream of energy like a blazing current flowing from Chu's palm into Changxi's. The power surged painfully through her body, forcing her to collapse to the floor. Chu caught her in time and administered the healing medicine. Wherever his Reiki coursed through her meridians, it inflicted harm, but luckily the Tang family's elixir was there to counterbalance it. He noticed that, unlike when he had healed Aunt Yi, this time his Reiki was not traveling along the meridians but instead spreading directly throughout the body. Using his strength, he eased her pain and asked if she was feeling all right. Changxi responded softly, saying it felt comfortable. At that moment, Chu realized Tang Xian had been right. The formula was indeed toxic. This sparked his curiosity about whether the irregularities within meridians were an essential distinction between men and women, pushing him to consider searching for an ancient martial arts text for further insight. Changxi asked him to repeat the treatment so she could continue feeling comforted. Just then, his father suddenly walked into the room and caught sight of them sitting together on the bed. Startled, he shouted and demanded to know why they were on the bed, if their claim had been about studying. Both grew nervous, and Changxi hurried to explain that she had been feeling unwell, had simply lain down on his bed, and then quickly excused herself from the room. Chu tried to reassure his father that it wasn't what it seemed. Afterward, Chu turned his attention back to breaking the rules in his own way. For the moment, he pulled a pot out from under his bed and devoted himself to forging a sheath. The scene then shifted to the site where Chu had slain the Jinmen messenger. A vehicle arrived, and investigators began scouring the area. They discovered traces of a Wang Chuan strike but found only minimal blood at the scene. One of the investigators expressed surprise, concluding that the killer had not relied on ancient martial arts but had instead taken a more conventional approach. She suspected the killer was still within Jinmen and ordered the team to search every major hospital, track the healing medicine across the black market, and investigate the auction held on the night of the murder. Another investigator stepped forward, revealing her identity and stating her intention to head to Jinmen. She stood tall and revealed that her family had arranged a fiancé for her, the sixth son of the Chu family, and she intended to evaluate him personally. That sixth son was none other than Chu himself. Meanwhile, Chu was working in his room. He was carefully crafting a scabbard for his blade so that any damage it sustained could be repaired, and the sword restored to its original state. He also fashioned a mask to obscure his appearance. With that mask, he wouldn't need to worry about being recognized when facing off against the messenger. At the same time, he pondered what made Changxi so coveted amidst such fierce competition. Suddenly, his phone buzzed with a message from CH. It was Changxi, inviting him to discuss matters over secret dishes at U restaurant. When she arrived, Chu met Changxi and her mother already waiting at the restaurant. Her mother immediately asked about the status of the boosting elixir and whether he had any specific conditions. Chu explained that he was still awaiting certain herbs and expected to finish the elixir by the following week. When she inquired about the price, he told her he wasn't after money. What he truly wanted was access to the Ye family's cultivation techniques. Changxi and her mother were utterly shocked by such a request. Aunt Ye, flatly refused, explaining that the techniques had been handed down for countless generations and were valued more dearly than life itself. No outsider could ever hope to claim them. Chu was struck by the magnitude of their worth. Aunt Ye urged him to abandon martial training altogether, insisting it would bring him nothing but misfortune. Changxi then asked her mother if Chu could study the book should he become part of their family. Her mother admitted yes, but only if he married into the Yi household. Chu firmly rejected the idea of marrying into any family, declaring he would only wed someone from his own bloodline. Changxi's mother explained that by law men were required to marry into women's families, and since the Yi clan would never compromise, there was no use arguing further. Changxi lowered her head in disappointment. Chu then resolved to visit Jiu and collect the 2 million he was owed. Upon arrival, Zhai questioned where Chu had gotten the money and why he hadn't been included. Chu mentioned he wanted a book on martial cultivation and asked how one might obtain it. Jiu replied such books were rare treasures and pressed Chu on whether he was already pursuing cultivation. Jiu laughed, remarking that cultivation was no simple task for men, and wondering why Chu wished to alter his path. Chu was bewildered by the idea that it was so difficult for men to cultivate. Jiu explained that it wasn't impossible, but there was an old saying, to begin cultivation. Chu realized Jiu was hinting that practicing ancient martial arts carried great risks for men. Jiu clarified that the old martial arts had never been intended for men, because reaching the peak required castration. Chu suddenly understood that Tang Xian and Aunt Yi had both been correct. Jiu even offered to help arrange contact with the hospital if Chu was determined to undergo the procedure. Frustrated, Chu demanded where he might at least purchase a bundle of old self-defense techniques. Jiu responded that although he had access to many resources, ancient martial arts scrolls were not among them. The great martial families would rather reduce their homes to ash than reveal those secrets. Chu realized the women likely feared that if men ever mastered those arts, their dominance would collapse. He then returned to his work, using the gathered ingredients to refine pills. With the mask shielding him, the process went more smoothly. The pills he produced could temporarily raise a user's strength by 30%, but the trade-off was an intense physical strain. Hua appeared at the doorway, watching him. Chu invited her inside, telling her he had just finished. She asked what he was doing and he explained he was making pills. She remarked that such tasks were normally reserved for alchemist families like the Tangs, but Chu insisted he was telling the truth. Hua then asked if he was heading home now. Chu gently took her by the hand and drew her closer, asking if she wanted him to stay or to leave. She answered without hesitation that she definitely wanted him to stay. Chu realized that despite her outward appearance as an ordinary woman from his world, she was surprisingly candid and unreserved in her words. He softly laid her down upon the bed, but she stopped him, explaining she was on her period. She added that since he was still underage, it would cause trouble if she became pregnant, and she was also worried about gossip spreading. Chu asked if she doubted his sense of responsibility. The following day, Chu walked to school, exhausted from his sleepless night. Yamo called out, saying his sister had asked him to bring Chu along. Chu asked if Yamo knew the reason. Yamo guessed he might soon become Chu's brother-in-law. When asked if he liked Tang Xian, Chu admitted he had feelings for Tao Yuniao and begged Yamo to keep it a secret. He feared others would ridicule him for caring about someone they dismissed as foolish. Chu offered to help Yamo win Tao Yuniao's affection, provided Yamo wasn't embarrassed by his approach. Yamo was surprised, insisting men shouldn't be timid about such matters. Chu reminded him that in this world men tended to be more delicate. They strategized about winning Tao Yuniao's heart, with Chu advising Yamo to follow his plan faithfully, or else he would resort to force and intimidation. Just then, Changxi arrived holding a cup of milk tea. Chu asked her how she had managed to find him. Changxi urged him to drink quickly before the milk tea spoiled. Yamo asked about the drink, but Changxi ignored him and kept pressing Chu to drink immediately. As Chu swallowed, he realized she had drugged him once again. His vision blurred and his body began to collapse. Changxi swiftly placed him inside her car. Yamo was left stunned at the sight. Changxi told him Chu no longer needed to be involved and suggested he order an Uber to head home. She then drove Chu to a hotel room. There she laid him on the bed, unbuttoned his shirt and climbed on top of him. When Chu regained consciousness and saw, he cried out, demanding to know what she was doing. Changxi told him not to move, explaining it was her first time and might be painful for her. She leaned down and began kissing him. They spent the night together. The next morning, Chu asked Changxi why she had done it. Despite having dated 35 boyfriends, she had no actual experience. Rising to her feet, she said she had only ever controlled them, that boyfriends were never meant for that purpose. She then tossed a book toward Chu. Chu was startled to see it was an ancient martial arts tome belonging to the Yi family. Changxi told him that he now belonged to her, that he didn't need to do anything for her, and instead she would dedicate herself to supporting him. Chu kissed her gently and placed something in her mouth. She asked what it was, and he told her it was something good she would soon discover. As Changxi began cultivating, Chu carefully studied the book. He learned that women in this world were born with altered meridians, enabling them to absorb spiritual power and transform it into inner strength. Men lacked this ability, and if they tried practicing ancient martial arts, their bodies would explode, leading to death. The rise of old martial arts had completely shifted the balance of power, granting women overwhelming dominance. Chu resolved to adapt the methods of ancient martial arts to create a path where men could train safely. Meanwhile, Chang felt a sudden shift within her own body and successfully managed to break past the Wujing barrier, stepping into the third layer of the Wujing kingdom. Chu informed her that the Qingyi he had given her was particularly effective for women seeking to strengthen their ancient martial arts. Changxi asked where he had obtained it and challenged him to prove whether he was still stronger than her. She launched an attack at him, but she toppled over from the force. Chu caught her, and she immediately pleaded for more Qingyi so they could repeat what they had done before. Chu told her the amount she already had was more than enough, yet Changxi shoved him down onto the bed. She declared that she was still Changxi, the dominant one, and would prove it to him again. The following day, Chu walked to school, thinking about how much worse the night could have been had he not drunk the medicinal concoction. Tao crossed his path in the hallway and told him she had been at the hospital. She then informed him that Tang wanted to see him. A sense of unease and dread welled up in Chu. He headed toward the extracurricular sports room, where Tang was waiting. Her face was filled with anger, and she demanded to know where he had been the previous night and what he had been doing. Chu confessed outright that he had spent the night at a hotel with Changxi. Tang exploded, calling him shameless for admitting so easily that Changxi was his girlfriend. Chu leaned against the table and asked if, should they stay together, he would be her only partner and husband within the Tang family. Tang replied bluntly that her family would never allow it. Chu argued back that he should have the right to choose as well. Tang screamed, demanding how men and women could ever be the same, and whether he was trying to become a woman himself. Chu calmly explained he only wanted to remain himself and show the world what it meant to be human. Tang smiled faintly and told him he truly needed to focus on studying. Chu told her she didn't understand him at all, and if she could not accept him as he was, then they would have to go their separate ways. Tang demanded how he could walk away without taking responsibility or offering any explanation. Chu told her she could say whatever she wished. Tang admitted she liked him deeply and believed he was worthy of a future as her husband. But she burned with fury toward Changxi and wanted to harm her. Chu firmly declared he would never let that happen. Tang admitted it would sadden her to make him miserable, but she decided to give him one more chance. She challenged him to an arm wrestling match, warning that if he lost, she would sever Changxi's hands. Chu accepted without hesitation. Tang doubted he could ever win, considering her superior martial strength. The contest began. Both were seething with rage. Tang resolved never to let him claim victory. Chu could feel her martial strength surging. It was greater than Changxi's. Yet he knew defeat was not an option, for Changxi's hands hung in the balance. He quickly pulled out one of his fabricated pills to enhance his power. His strength surged instantly. With that, he overcame her and won. Tang was stunned, unable to believe the outcome. Chu reminded her to honor her word. She shrieked, saying she would overlook this instance of him cheating on her, but warned that if it happened again, things would not end well for him. She insisted he never forget that she was his girlfriend, and even if they did not marry, she would keep him bound to her life forever. Chu opened the door. Inside, his parents sat nervously with a young woman. His mother looked uneasy and asked why he had come home early when he was supposed to be at extracurricular activities. Chu replied that his teacher had been busy, so he returned ahead of time. The girl stood and introduced herself as Gong Yua, his fiancée. She displayed a marriage contract and asked if his aunt hadn't informed him. He replied he knew nothing about it or the signature and wished her well regardless. She said it made no difference whether he knew her. What mattered was that his parents knew. His mother explained that the Chu family chief, Gong Yue's mother, and his grandfather had all signed the contract. Chu grew agitated, realizing Chu Anlin held great sway over his parents, and that this woman was openly pressuring them. He prepared to tear the contract to shreds. Gong Yua laughed, calling him bold. She said ripping paper was easy, but destroying what it represented was not. Fury boiled in Chu. He wanted to strike her, and he told his parents he was going out for dinner. Gong Yua immediately said she would accompany him so they could grow closer. She accused him of being unwilling to help his parents, saying such behavior was beyond belief. Chu lunged and struck out, admitting he had long wanted to hit her. She protested that this was no way to begin, that they had only just met, and wondered how he could claim he had been waiting to beat her. Chu dismissed her reasoning, saying he could start wherever he pleased. She reminded him that she came from a noble family of Dong and had chosen to marry him, something he should be grateful for. He kicked her aside, declaring he didn't care in the slightest. Her strength, however, was even greater than Tang Xian's. The woman prepared to strike back, and Chu realized if the fight dragged on here, someone would end up gravely hurt, likely him. He reached for his sword, and Gong Yua warned him to calm down. It was the first time Chu had faced a woman with such overwhelming power. Gong Yua remarked that he was indeed qualified to be her husband, and she seemed oddly familiar to him. Gong Yua admitted it might be difficult for him given his current strength. She confessed she had been unusual since childhood, which had left her unwanted by men. But now she had found her future husband handsome and powerful. Chu asked if she was only making excuses to dodge the marriage. Gong Yua insisted she had a plan and that soon he would become her husband. She warned him never to look down on their union or he would face dire consequences. Chu asked what would happen if he were admitted to the national university. Gong Yua laughed, which irritated him deeply. He vowed that if accepted, he would flaunt his success proudly. Gong Yua mocked him again, whispering that men who entered that university often underwent sex changes. Chu was startled, warning that if she spread such rumors, people would faint. He started walking away more quickly, but Gong Yua smacked him on the back. He spun around, ready to lash out in fury. But Gong Yua, suddenly cautious, said she was finished and begged him to calm himself. 2 days later, at the school playground, preparations were underway for the competition. Chu sat reading, his thoughts fixed on gaining acceptance into the national university. A boy approached and asked why, as a member of the men's basketball team, he wasn't practicing for the upcoming game. Chu replied they could gladly remove him from the team. Xiao. Another student came up, saying Chu had asked him to remind Chu about the game and not to skip it. Chu dismissed it, saying he had no time for basketball. Irritated, Xiao snatched the book Chu was reading and threw it to the ground. Enraged, Chu grabbed another book and hurled it into Xiao's face, demanding he pick up the one he had tossed. Xiao shouted at Chu and charged at him. Chu caught him, thinking Xiao was trying to pull his hair. Yamao attempted to intervene, but Xiao shoved him aside. The two squared off, Chu moving Yamao out of the way. He twisted Xiao's wrist sharply. Xiao, howling in pain, cursed Chu and cried out about his injured arm. Chu shouted for him to take it back, demanding Xiao apologize. Writhing in agony, Xiao finally gave in, apologizing for throwing the book and for biting Yamao. The vice president arrived, declaring that fighting was strictly forbidden at school, and ordered both of them to the disciplinary office. Xiao, distressed and crying, begged for help. Chu explained that Xiao had been the one to attack him and had even bitten Yamao. The vice president remarked that Chu's actions still seemed excessive. Chu countered that he had only been restraining Xiao's violence, and argued that the student council should commend him instead. The president asked Xiao for his version of events. Overwhelmed with shame and mocked by others, Xiao burst into tears and fled. From the scene, Yu advised Yamao to visit the infirmary to treat his injuries. Yamao muttered that he ought to explain what happened to Tang Xian, since she was likely to hear of it anyway. Chu tapped Yamao on the head, saying that as a member of the Yi family he shouldn't be so timid. Yamao replied it wasn't fear but caution. Men always risked gossip and criticism. Chu realized the problem lay more with the world they lived in than with Yamao's actions. His friend had only wanted to help. The student president went to Tang Xian and asked if she was aware of what her boyfriend had done. Tang responded coldly that he was the worst, always picking fights. She brushed it aside, saying the vice president must have been deceived by Chu Ching. The vice president told her she wasn't worried because Chu was just a boy, and suggested she break up with him, even reminding her of the incident with Changxi. Tang shot her a sharp glare, instantly making the president uneasy. Tang clarified that she had already grasped the situation and had ordered Zhou to inform Chu about the match. She further pointed out that Xiao had instigated the mess, leaving Chu blameless. The president commented that Tang seemed different now, resembling King Shangzhou and Chu Ching. The scene then shifted to the infirmary, where Chu was carefully treating Yi Mao's injury. A group of boys entered, with Ju stepping forward to confront Chu, demanding why he had harmed Mao. Ju explained that Mao had been sent to deliver a message about the match, and he insisted that Chu apologize. Chu deliberately let his keys fall to the ground and told Ju that if he wanted an apology, he should pick them up himself. Ju, irritated, warned him not to overlook the upcoming basketball game, stressing that Tang Xian expected him there. Chu agreed he would attend but declared he would personally deal with Tang Xian, then asked Zhou to leave. Zhou insinuated that Chu only had the courage to speak that way because of Tang Xian's backing, yet reminded him to honor his promise to play. Over at the playground, Tang Xian sat alongside Li Huinger, president of Jinmen's second high school. The two were clearly rivals. Mao looked around in surprise at the massive crowd and the wild excitement building over the basketball match. Decisive waved them over. He offered them seats and mentioned that he would signal when it was Chu's turn to step onto the court. He noticed that one chair had been smeared with glue, but a seat had specifically been left open for Yi Mao, Chu ended up sitting in a different chair instead. Young's expression soured clearly. He was not at all pleased with Chu's decision of where to sit. Tang Xian then showed up and handed Chu a note regarding the experience of sitting on the sidelines. Chu quickly realized she still held resentment toward him and scribbled a reply. In the note, he asked her not to sit beside him. Yet despite his words, Tang promptly sat down right next to him anyway. As she shifted, Tang's pants suddenly tore. Embarrassed, she lowered her voice, admitting that he must have seen the purple fabric she wore beneath. Tang shouted at Chu, upset that he hadn't told her directly. She explained that he had written his warning on a note and that the seat had been reserved for him all along. Heng slipped off her own jacket and wrapped it securely around Tang's waist. Seeing Tang's flushed face, Chu teased her by asking whether she thought her body drew him in, or if he was simply overwhelmed with desire. Chu then handed over his own jacket, telling her he didn't want anyone else catching sight of her exposed appearance. Tang, hinting that he was envious, returned the jacket and remarked that he should already be used to such situations. Chu grew exasperated and Tang stormed off. The match officially began with Chu dribbling the ball. Yet the opposing side snatched it away from him. Chu watched closely, observing the play. He noted that while his team was performing well, something about the other team didn't feel right. They looked oddly distracted. A girl from the rival side walked up to Tang, casually asking if the boy in the seat was her boyfriend. She proposed a wager. If her team triumphed, Tang would have to lend Chu to her. Tang instantly refused, but Lei mocked her, suggesting that Tang was simply afraid to lose her boyfriend. Tang countered, asking what the stakes would be if she lost. Li replied with a shameless grin that she would streak around unclothed. Li then roused her teammates, urging them to step up their effort, and they began scoring aggressively. She reminded Tang not to forget their bargain. If her team won, Tang would have to hand Chu over for a month, during which she would shower him with affection. Chu kept watching the game and began to realize that the opposing captain was hiding their true ability. He suspected foul play as their performance suddenly looked far stronger than expected. He called Chu onto the court and Chu joked that he had only come to sit idly on the bench. Frustrated, Tang set the stakes herself. If they won, she would surrender him for a month. Chu smirked and quipped that the girl sitting behind him looked cute and he wouldn't mind losing. Tang, enraged, demanded that he stop joking. Chu quickly said he was teasing and agreed to play on the condition that Chu would cheer him on. Tang agreed and, with a provocative smirk, promised that if he won, she would let him touch her chest. Chu then stepped onto the court. At the toss, he managed to snatch the ball and began dribbling down the court. But one of the opponents intervened and stole the ball away from him. Li Huanger chuckled and remarked to Tang that her so-called boyfriend was certainly entertaining. The score sat at 1-5, but Chu knew he had to change the momentum, aiming to push it toward 1-9. He dashed forward, leaped high, and landed a perfect shot. The ball sank cleanly and the crowd erupted with roaring cheers. He spun the ball on his fingertip before tossing it back, which the opponents took as outright provocation. Li sneered, implying that Chu looked like he wanted to join her side. Tang's irritation deepened. Just then, an opponent attempted to score. Chu yanked down the player's pants, mocking him by calling out his immaturity. The entire audience froze in shock at Chu's antics. Li Huanger, visibly annoyed, watched as Chu demanded that the rival be thrown out, claiming that Li was actually a woman disguising herself as a man, thus revealing their hidden strength. Chu then turned back to Tang, reminding her of her earlier promise to let him touch her if he won. Tang dared him to go ahead, but Chu wavered and backed off. 3 days later, Chu sat in class sketching something in his notebook. Mao came over and asked what he was drawing. Chu explained that it was related to whether men could cultivate ancient martial arts, provided they could channel inner strength through their bodies. Mao then informed him that Tang Xian wanted to meet him at the Tingyu Martial Arts Stadium the next day. Chu suspected she might be challenging him because he had failed to touch her as promised. He braced himself, preparing for a duel. She confronted him directly, issuing a challenge. She vowed she would explain her reason only if he lost. As their match unfolded, Chu managed to seize her and demanded an explanation. Tang insisted her reasons would remain hidden unless he lost, struggling fiercely against his grip. Chu then asked if she was angry because he hadn't touched her like he was supposed to. Tang drove her elbow into him, knocking him down. She shouted how humiliated she felt over his actions in front of others, demanding that he grasp the consequences of his behavior. Chu, flustered, asked if she wanted him to actually grope her chest. Tang confirmed it and demanded to know if he was still recklessly training in martial arts without listening to her. He promised her firmly that he would never let her down. Yet she corrected him, saying that widow was a word reserved for women, and even if she failed to keep her word, she would never allow him to become one. She tugged his shirt upward, then loosened her own garments. She leaned in to kiss him, revealing she wore no undergarments beneath. Chu shoved her back, He questioned if doing this here and now was really appropriate. Tang asked if he was feeling ashamed, and he, his irritation building, declared he would never feel embarrassment in this lifetime. At that moment, Tang's nanny stepped inside. She immediately pulled Chu up and introduced him as Tang's boyfriend. She explained to Chu that this nanny was no ordinary caretaker but the master of the Tingyu Martial Arts Stadium. Chu was stunned, remembering this was the very person who had once fed him milk and who was now unveiled as a formidable figure within the Tang Empire. The nanny clarified that he was nothing more than an enforcer serving the Tang household. He had also brought along 3 boys whom Tang intended to discipline for their misconduct. Zhou Bukun and his companions begged for forgiveness, claiming the other school had concealed their skills and tricked them. Tang reprimanded them harshly, saying she would deal with Li Huanzhe herself and scolding them for their reckless behavior, including the act of smearing glue on Chu's chair. The boys trembled in fear, while Chu silently prayed for divine mercy to spare them from Tang's anger. The nanny then ordered Chu to follow him to the medicine room, instructing him to carry medicine for little Yan. Chu consented and went with him. Inside the medicine room, the nanny sat down and began questioning Chu about his background, his family, and his current status. Chu, growing defensive, replied that he had no wish to be tied to the Tang family and was not seeking the nanny's approval. He vented his frustration, saying he was nothing more than a commoner with no riches, no fame, and no patience, and if that made him unworthy of Tang Xian, he would rather leave immediately. The nanny responded that while he hadn't outright declared Chu unfit, he doubted Chu's ability to adapt to life in the Tang family. He pointed out that although Xian adored him, Chu did not seem to value it. Chu interrupted, firmly stating he had no intention of marrying into the Tang family, and that he already knew his own worth. The nanny slammed his palm on the table, spilling the tea across its surface. Chu pressed on, declaring that if the nanny wished for him to stay away from Xian, he would comply, but if forced apart, he would never go near Xian again. The nanny slapped Chu across the face. He warned that Chu's handsome looks could bring danger upon those around him, and threatened that if Chu continued to defy him, he should consider what would happen if Tang came seeking him again. Tang overheard the commotion from the medicine room and hurried there with the 3 boys. They were stunned to find Chu standing over the nanny, who was sprawled on the ground. The nanny looked up, remarking that Chu truly seemed to possess the aura of a martial artist. Tang demanded an explanation. Chu told her the nanny had threatened him to leave Tang, insisting he was unworthy and would never become the Tang family's male heir. The nanny added that he had only said Chu would never head the family, and that now he understood Chu posed no real danger. Chu shot back that he had no desire to marry into the Tang clan even if Tang herself begged him to. He also warned the nanny to watch himself, saying he was the only person who had ever slapped him and survived. Furious, the nanny accused Chu of shamelessness and demanded to know if he intended to kill him. Chu drew his sword and hurled it toward the nanny, not to wound him but to strike fear into his heart. The nanny, trembling, collapsed to his knees. Zhou and his friends quaked with terror at Chu's display of dominance. Tang quickly went to check on her nanny. The focus then shifted to Jinmen Castle, where the messengers gathered for a council. One messenger read a report about Xu Ran, a purple-robed envoy who had died in a dispute tied to an auctioned artifact, though no suspicious suspects had been identified. Their leader, Gong, pointed out a golden stone sold at that auction, noting its extraordinary value. She suspected Zhu might be concealing vital information. A messenger suggested arresting Zhu for questioning, but Gong reminded them that since Zhu belonged to the Zhu family, they could not detain him outright. Instead, she instructed them to track who had been in close contact with Zhu recently to uncover the truth. After the council, Gong went to Zhu's quarters but found the chamber empty, muttering that he was a mischievous brat. Meanwhile, Chu spotted Zhou and his companions loitering nearby and warned them that Tang was in foul temper, advised them to depart quickly. Su told Zhou and the others to start calling him Big Brother, promising them favors and rewards. The boys eagerly agreed, even blurting out Big Daddy in their excitement. Chu told them to cut out the over-the-top flattery, warning their necks would ache from all the bowing. He then handed them medicine. Tang approached and Chu asked if she had more medicine to spare. She tossed some at him without a word. Perplexed by her mood, Chu passed the medicine to the boys. He then walked over to Tang and asked her if she was upset about something. He offered to apologize if it concerned her nanny, though he refused to apologize directly to the nanny himself. Tang told him it wasn't necessary. She admitted her nanny sometimes behaved like a fool, which was why he had been left in a minor stadium. She added that he had been stationed there deliberately, which might explain his harshness. Tang confessed she hadn't realized Chu's strength was so formidable. She had assumed he was only slightly stronger than herself. Chu downplayed his power, saying it was more about scaring others, and even offered her a free demonstration if she wished. She asked if he was a Taoist cultivator, to which Chu confirmed he was. He then said her heart had been wounded because he once declared he would never marry her, even if she begged. He reached out, placing a hand on her shoulder, and explained that he would prefer someone to marry into his family rather than him marrying into hers. Tang challenged him, asking how he could be so certain she would agree to marry into his household. Chu countered by asking if she wouldn't marry a good man like him, then who would she marry? Tang instantly threw the same question back at him. Still burdened, Tang admitted it pained her knowing he wouldn't marry her, and that she too would refuse to marry him. Chu reassured her that as long as she didn't wed anyone else, they could remain together and he would cherish her as his first love. He kissed her and said she belonged to him, and when she asked if he would take another wife, he firmly said no. Tang then pressed about Changxi. Chu explained that while he wouldn't marry anyone else, he might let another woman marry into his family. Tang grew annoyed and scolded him for being shameless. At that moment, Chu noticed a girl seated nearby. He realized she was stronger than him and froze in place. He stopped Tang from stepping forward, telling her the woman was just an old acquaintance and urging her to head home. But Tang refused, insisting that he should leave first. Chu explained that the matter with this woman was rooted in his dispute with Changxi, and if she stayed, it would only support Changxi's claim. Tang stomped on his leg, making him yelp, then ordered him to stay alive until she returned before finally heading home. The woman then closed in on Chu and he asked to talk things through. She drew even nearer and suddenly attacked. Chu chose to retreat, knowing he was still in the early stages of training while she was vastly more advanced. Spotting Tang Xian in the distance, Chu dashed toward her, hoping she might come to his aid, but the woman seized him by the neck, intent on killing him without tearing his body apart. Chu offered to teach her his techniques and hinted he possessed other valuable knowledge she might want. She scoffed, saying she would strip him of everything except his life. Her plan was to leave him in such despair that he would beg for death. She tore off his shirt and remarked that if she truly desired him, he wouldn't resist. She told him plainly that even if she wanted him, he couldn't stop her. When he asked why she wanted him dead, she confessed that his death was necessary so her juniors could finally find peace in the afterlife. With that, she started lifting him upward toward the sky, and when they reached an isolated area, Chu demanded to know why she had dragged him there. She revealed her plan. She intended to strip away every ounce of his essence through a merciless method that would ensure a slow and agonizing end. Chu pushed back defiantly, telling her not to waste her strength, because he would never allow her plan to succeed. She made her preparations to begin, but at that instant an explosion erupted, throwing Chu off balance. Unfamiliar woman appeared, and Chu wondered if her purpose was to arrest him. The new arrival commanded the other to hand Chu over to her immediately. The two women stood locked in a tense standoff. Chu realized that no matter which of them prevailed, his circumstances would remain disastrous. Resolved to gamble with his life, Chu pulled out his sword and drove it straight into the back of one of the women. He coldly declared that he had always known she intended to kill him. The wounded woman, bleeding profusely, spun to face him but soon crumpled to the ground and breathed her last. Chu stood above her lifeless body, sword still in hand. Finally recognizing her as Gong in her fading consciousness, admitted her true aim had been to save him so he would owe her a debt, yet she never expected him to strike her down. She asked whether he was responsible for killing the purple-robed Shu Ran. Chu admitted he had slain a purple-robed envoy, but insisted he had no knowledge of who Shu Ran was. She reassured him that, regardless, she would not target his fiancée or bring charges against her. Before long, pressing a gun against his chest, she accused him of exploiting the situation for his gain and called him shameless. Chu warned her bluntly that she was treading dangerously close to losing her fiancé. Gong only laughed at the warning. Gong then shifted the tone, saying she wanted something from him and suggested they move to a hotel. Yet upon arrival, the hotel was closed for a month. Inside, Gong held up a sheet of paper with strange markings. Chu calmly explained that he had drawn it himself. Gong quickly realized that the drawing proved his capability to develop entirely new cultivation techniques. Retracting her earlier dismissal, she acknowledged that he might even qualify for the National University, and then proposed a deal. She promised to cover up the purple-robed envoy's death if he would help resolve her physical condition. Gong revealed that she had originally been engaged to a man named Chulan from his clan, but the engagement had been switched to him. Chu, confused about what illness afflicted her, was told by Gong that if he failed to identify her problem, he would be branded useless and thrown in prison. Chu explained that her cultivation method clashed with her natural body type, which caused her constant weight gain. Gong was pleased he had discerned the truth and agreed to let him treat her. Chu then demanded his reward. Gong told him the Shu Ran matter was settled and revealed intelligence about his family. She explained that Chu Anlin, the patriarch, was elderly, and most affairs were handled by Chu Qingru, his third aunt. Chu Lan, her son, disliked her fiancé and sought to replace him, which ultimately led to Chu being chosen. Chu wondered about the real necessity behind this marriage and the entanglement between the Chu and Gong families. Gong then demanded a kiss in exchange for exclusive information that he could obtain nowhere else. Chu retorted that he would only kiss her once she divulged everything. He called her beautiful, and Gong was deeply moved, for it was the first genuine compliment she had ever received. She began to explain. The supervision department was a cornerstone of the empire, answering directly to the empress and led by its own chief. Traditionally, the Gong family had always held authority over it. Chu was astonished to learn that his fiancé's lineage came from such an influential household. Gong continued, explaining that while she could not assume leadership herself and only served as an aide, the Jianwu leader always maintained a right-hand and left-hand successor in hereditary lines. Since one branch lacked a partner, the Chu family sought to secure their place through marriage. Chu realized his clan was using marriage as a strategy to strengthen their footing, much like when his own parents had once been cast out. Gong then reminded him to begin her treatment as promised. Chu, however, asked for Wang Chuan bullets, which were not part of the original arrangement. He then pulled out some pills from his pocket, offering a new trade, the pills in exchange for the Wang Chuan bullets. Gong questioned whether the pills were truly worth as much as Wang Chuan bullets, or if they were simply for her own treatment. Chu clarified that the pills were unrelated to her treatment and that he would decide their value later. For now, he urged her to test one. Gong swallowed a pill, and at once, her strength surged by 30%. She then disarmed her gun. Reloading calmly, she passed the Wang Chuan bullets to Chu. She requested 10 pills and Chu handed them over. In return, she presented him with a bullet, which Chu noticed was far superior to the ones Xu Ran had used. Gong explained that the bullets came in different ranks. She herself used grade 3 bullets. Xu Ran had carried the weakest grade and the strongest were grade 5. Gong 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 gong. Gong reclined against the bed and asked him to demonstrate what he was capable of. Chu gently touched her cheek, causing her to feel an unfamiliar warmth on her face. He placed a kiss on her cheek, fulfilling his promise. Gong was overjoyed with the improvement in her looks and embraced him. Gratitude, yet she fretted that her body still had not truly changed and worried whether her normal face could be maintained. Chu explained that if she ceased training, her appearance would revert to its old form. Gong screamed in frustration, questioning if this was truly the reality she faced. She insisted the fault lay not with her techniques but with her body type, warning that continuing her cultivation could put her in grave danger. Chu was startled to discover her body constitution itself was flawed, and asked if all she required was a more efficient training regimen. He shook his head, saying it was not so simple. Something deeper was wrong. Her spiritual body, like an internal pillar, had been stolen from her. When she demanded to know how he had discovered that, he told her plainly. The thief was not an outsider, but a member of her own family. Agitated by his words, she drew her gun and ordered him to stay silent. He replied that if she already knew and still chose to cultivate, it meant she was prepared to risk her life for vengeance. Enraged, she fired at him and told him to leave immediately. Chu leapt aside, warning her to calm down or else the treatment's effect would vanish. But then she suddenly collapsed, her face bleeding heavily. Feeling pity for her, Chu explained that the Chu family had tried to coerce him into marriage, and in response, he had broken their legs. He added that the hostility between himself and his clan could still be negotiated. He also mentioned that cooperation between them was possible, and even if he enrolled in the National University, he would still head to the imperial capital to try and aid her. Finally, he pleaded with her to abandon martial cultivation altogether since it would kill her, and he did not wish to arrive in the imperial city only to discover her corpse. She quietly asked whether he would truly give his all to help her. The scene then shifted to Tang Xian, who was searching for Chu alongside Tang Xian. Tang Xian, however, showed no enthusiasm for the search. Tang Xian lashed out at her, demanding that she help save her boyfriend instead of making sarcastic comments. Tang Xian responded that as her second, she would treat her with respect, and Tang Xian dragged her away even though she was still in the middle of a party. Tang Xian teasingly asked if she was truly devoted to her boyfriend and who was more attractive, him or the model she had just been with moments earlier. Tang Xian insisted that her boyfriend was 100 times cuter than that man. Feeling spurred on, Tang Xian urged her to hurry, warning that it would be a waste if such a charming man perished. Just then Heng's phone rang. It was Chu. She asked if he was safe, and her aunt, overhearing his voice, remarked that it was beautiful and said she liked it. She responded, expressing happiness that he had returned home and asking him to meet her at school before hanging up. Her aunt scolded her afterward, saying he was lying about being fine and urging her to go home to protect him. Tang refused, leaving her aunt disappointed, feeling as though she had sacrificed her own pleasures to save her boyfriend, only for Tang to insist on spending the night with him. Meanwhile, Chu was dining with his parents. He reassured his father not to worry about the plump girl, since she would soon return to the imperial city. His parents were surprised by her determination to leave so quickly. He explained calmly that she intended to wait several years before marrying, and that the marriage had been arranged by Chu Qingru connected to Chu Lan. He realized the Chu family was truly their adversary and warned his parents to be prepared, as he would never allow them an easy escape. He was handed a list of people who had recently been in touch with the Jiu family. Noticing the details, he saw that Chu Ching had also been in contact with the Zhai family. Chu then went to his sister's room to check if it had been damaged, since Gong had been staying there during her visit. This all unfolded within his home. She stepped inside and called his sister to ask her directly about the matter. His sister answered the phone and she could faintly hear a man's voice in the background. It turned out his sister was with her boyfriend when Chu called. Hearing this, Chu shouted playfully, accusing her of being unfaithful since he caught the sound of another man's voice. Her boyfriend froze, convinced she had another man. She quickly explained that Chu was her brother. But Chu didn't stop, he kept joking, loudly asking how she could call him her little brother. Finally, his sister snapped at him, yelling for him to cut out the trolling. Chu laughed heartily, clearly enjoying the prank, before asking her to pass the phone to her boyfriend. Xiao grabbed the phone, declaring firmly that he was her one and only boyfriend and the true love of her life. Chu told him to relax, explaining it had only been a prank. His sister tried to calm the situation, but Chu's sister burst out yelling at him, demanding to know why he pulled such a stunt. She reminded him that Xiao might become her future husband and asked why he had even called her. She then questioned if he was short on money and wanted her to transfer some funds into his account. Chu's sister told him to send money her way, and Xiao agreed, though he added that as a man, he didn't think a girl should accept money from him so casually. Chu sent her a full $100,000. She was stunned at the amount, immediately assuming he must have borrowed it from Yi Chenxi. Embarrassed in front of her boyfriend, she worried what Xiao might think of her brother. Xiao reassured her not to fret, promising he would handle it, which touched her deeply to see his genuine kindness. The scene then cut back to Chu himself. He was surrounded by Jiu and another friend, both calling him boss and asking why he insisted they practice outdated martial arts. They had heard rumors that men who practiced martial arts risked becoming impotent. Chu told them not to be afraid. His training method was different and he practiced it himself without issue. He explained that he had created a safe system for men, though it still needed testing. The boys remained uneasy, but Chu assured them he would personally guide them. Just then, Maxi walked in and asked if he was bullying his classmates. Chu replied with a laugh, asking why she had shown up. She said she came just to see him and even brought milk tea, promising it wasn't drugged this time. Chu admitted he wasn't a fan of tea. She leaned closer, boldly asking if he liked her lips. But suddenly another woman appeared, announcing that the head of her family wished to meet Chu Ching. Chu recognized her affiliation immediately. They were from the Tang family. He walked over and asked the woman if she had been looking specifically for him. Sitting nearby was a nanny as well. Chu jokingly referred to him as a babysitter, and the nanny barked back that such remarks were unkind toward Tang Xian. Chu teased, asking if that meant she was his mother-in-law, but the woman clarified firmly that she was not. Chu quickly realized the group harbored dislike toward him. As he turned to leave, they mocked him, calling him arrogant, stubborn, reckless, and lacking a single redeeming trait. Tang Xian's mother added that, even if he was clever, to claim he was worthy of her daughter was like saying Yunjiang City had no fish at all. Chu countered smoothly, saying that in fact, there was fresh, tender meat in the city that was far more popular and advised her to enjoy that instead of fish. Tang's mother grew irritated at his insolence, but her demeanor shifted the moment Tang Xian herself appeared. She asked her daughter why she had come, then turned on Chu, demanding why he was present without permission. Without hesitation, Chu suddenly kissed Tang Xian in front of everyone. Changxi, standing nearby, exploded in fury upon seeing him kiss another woman right before her eyes. Tang Xian shoved him away, saying it was too late and that she had to head home. Chu smirked, but Changxi seized him by the collar and hurled him straight into the water. Then she dragged him into her car. Trying to divert her rage, Chu asked who had provoked her, offering to beat them up. But he realized she was furious because she had seen him kiss Tang Xian. She lunged at him, tearing at his clothes. He reminded her they were parked right in front of the entire school. But Changxi snapped that he hadn't thought about that when he kissed Tang Xian in front of her. She kept pulling his clothes off until finally Chu asked if she was satisfied now. She admitted she was and warned him to keep away from other women. As Chu stepped out of the car, he muttered that he needed to head home and relive, and that he should stop drinking her tea since it always ended in the same outcome. Chu's phone rang again. This time it was his sister calling. When he answered, she asked him to look after their parents and apologize to them on her behalf. Chu pressed her to say where she was and what had happened. A different woman took the phone and told him his sister was tied up, demanding he arrive at the Drunken Dream building within 30 minutes. If he was late, he would only find her corpse. Chu immediately called Ju to ask about Drunken Dream. Ju explained it was the largest gold bar distributor in Jinmen. He added that the Yi family and Drunken Dream were the dominant underground powers, dealing in alcohol, soldiers, narcotics, and countless illicit trades. Ju also explained that their leader Zui Meng had come to Jinmen years ago to establish Drunken Dream. As Chu rushed toward the building, Ju warned that it was far too dangerous and that he wouldn't be able to back him up if things went wrong. Chu replied coldly that he didn't need any backup. Saving his sister was all that mattered. He arrived at the building where a woman directed him to the 67th floor. Chu ascended quickly, tightening his fists. Each step he took grew heavier with resolve. His sister screamed at him to run away. One of the women kicked his sister, but Chu seized her by the throat instantly. At that moment, the leader entered and asked if he was Chu Ching. Chu confirmed, saying yes, he was. His sister, terrified of Zui Meng, begged him to stop talking and flee. Chu pushed her behind him, promising they would return home soon. He then demanded to know who Zui Meng really was and why she had kidnapped his sister. She introduced herself as Zui Meng, the head of Drunken Dream, and revealed that his sister had been working there as a bartender. Chu roared furiously, demanding why they had assaulted his sister. Zui Meng calmly explained that those who had hurt her were not her subordinates. Chu warned them all to never touch his sister again, or he would personally kill them with his bare hands. Zui Meng moved at lightning speed. Chu braced himself against her speed. He pulled out some pills to amplify his power for the coming fight. Zui Meng lunged, shouting for him to prepare for his sister's funeral. Chu swallowed the pill and roared as radiant energy engulfed him. A wave of explosive force shook the surroundings. Smoke spread thick through the air. Chu drew his sword and readied himself for combat as Zui Meng mocked him, daring him to strike first. She then blasted him back, sending him and his sword crashing down. Recognizing her superior strength, she attempted to negotiate. Chu asked her to stop and discuss things rationally. He wanted to understand the truth behind all this. Zui Meng explained that his sister had slept with someone, and her mother had ordered her to punish Chu's sister for it. Chu instantly connected this to the man his sister had once referred to as her brother-in-law. He pleaded with Zui Meng to overlook the incident and release his sister. Zui Meng then revealed her face, showing a red slap mark. Chu was stunned. Zui Meng was among the most powerful figures around, so who could possibly have dared to strike her? Zui Meng told him bluntly that his sister had gone so far as to sleep with the mayor's son, and as a result, Zui Meng herself had been slapped because of her sister's reckless actions. She turned to Chu and asked if he was willing to make amends for what had happened. Curious about how she wanted him to settle it, Zui boldly demanded 300 million yuan, adding that if he couldn't gather that amount, she would accept his sword valued at 200 million yuan along with 100 million yuan in cash. Chu flatly refused, declaring that he would never allow her to harm his sister, and if the mayor truly wanted his sister dead, then he himself would persuade her to change her decision. She burst out laughing, mocking him, questioning who he thought he was and how he imagined he could sway the mayor. Chu calmly requested 3 days to resolve the matter. Zhu Yi agreed, but only if he paid her 300 million yuan up front for those 3 days. Chu admitted he had nowhere near that much money and instead revealed a pill. He insisted she take 20 of those pills as part of the deal, and then he suggested another condition. He told her she could sleep with him for 1 night as part of the bargain. She screamed at him in outrage, but soon after, she realized that if it meant ensuring his sister's safety, she would have to accept the proposal. Zui then shifted her tone. She told him to let his sister rest and instructed him to follow her into her chamber. Chu asked if she truly believed she could handle him. Without effort, she lifted him up and carried him directly to her quarters. She then placed him gently on her bed, leaned in and kissed him before continuing. Teasing that it surely couldn't have been his first time, Chu remarked that since he was incapable of overpowering her, she could have simply killed him and stolen all his pills. He wondered why she chose to accept such a strange bargain instead. Zoe answered that she had a strong intuition telling her that if she killed him, she might end up losing something priceless. As she reflected, she felt uneasy, questioning why he would willingly agree to sleep with her. She then called him attractive and asked if he had gotten enough rest. He questioned what she wanted now. In response, she produced a syringe and suggested they experiment with something new. Infuriated, Chu lunged forward with his sword when she tried forcing the injection into his body. The tension escalated, fierce, sharp, unyielding. She grew uneasy, pleading with him not to react with such violence. He roared back, declaring that one day he would have his revenge, and that he was taking his sister home immediately. He warned that if she attempted to block his way, he would kill them both right there. She pressed the syringe, but Chu shattered it. Using his power, he hastily gathered his clothes and stormed out. She stood frozen at the doorway. From the window, she silently watched as he carried his sister away. Something about him stirred her curiosity deeply. The scene then shifted to Chu's house, where he had just returned with his sister, his fury barely contained. His father immediately asked where they had gone and why his sister appeared injured. Chu explained that he had received a call from the police saying she had been abducted, so he rushed to rescue her. He reassured his father that her wounds weren't serious and would heal quickly. His father was stunned to hear of the kidnapping, especially since they weren't wealthy. Chu speculated that it might have been linked to organ trafficking. His father was distraught, lamenting the endless troubles piling on their family. First, his sister being kidnapped, and now his mother's company. Chu asked again about the matter, and his father's shock only deepened, repeating his disbelief over and over as if trapped in the weight of the news. Chu pressed further, asking what had happened with his mother's business. His father brushed it off, saying it was not something for the children to concern themselves with, and told him to wash up and rest. Unconvinced, Chu called Changxi to ask if she knew the truth about the company. She answered, telling him that everything happening was because of him, and that this could very well ignite a war. That night, while lying on his bed, Chu replayed everything in his mind. He thought of his mother, who was a genuinely kind woman, and the weight of the problems pressing down on them. His mother's company, his sister's ordeal, and the looming presence of Jinmen's mayor, all these burdens demanded a solution, and quickly. The next morning, Chu made his way to his mother's company for the first time. He immediately noticed a woman dominating a man there, thinking it must be a common sight in this place. He asked her where the president's office was, explaining that he needed to see her urgently. The woman was delighted to guide him and took a particular interest in him, asking about his age. When he replied that he was 17, she offered him financial support, claiming she had sponsored many students before. She even invited him on a date for the weekend. Just then, his mother entered and spotted him, demanding to know why he wasn't still at the hospital. He explained why he had come, but the woman beside him quickly apologized to his mother for bringing an outsider inside and tried to pass him off as her cousin. His mother was unimpressed. Chu felt bewildered by the exchange. He then bluntly told his mother that the woman had been attempting to seduce him. His mother was utterly shocked at hearing this. In a sharp retort, she asked the woman if she was aiming to become her daughter-in-law, clearly enjoying embarrassing her. Finally, she dismissed the woman, telling her to head to the finance department and collect her salary for the month, and then to leave. She scolded Chu for skipping school, saying she would listen to his story later when she had the time. Later, she summoned him to her office for a proper talk. She immediately asked why he was there instead of attending school. Chu showed her the written notice proving that he had obtained permission from the school. His mother then said that while his father might have been fooled by his words about his sister's situation, she could not be deceived so easily. She demanded the truth, so he confessed. He admitted that he had hidden the truth to spare his father from unnecessary worry, and then he revealed everything that had taken place. His mother shouted in anger, asking why he dared to go there in the first place. He tried to calm her, reassuring her that he was unhurt, though he decided it was best not to reveal everything so as not to add more burdens onto his parents. To change the subject, he displayed his magic to her by levitating water in midair. She immediately asked if Changxi had been the one teaching him such abilities. He quickly explained that it was not connected to ancient martial arts but something far more complex, promising that he would clarify everything one day. She noted how much he had changed since meeting Changxi, unaware that there was another secret reason behind it all. Chu then asked her about what had really happened to her company. She replied that while she understood his concern, he should leave adult matters alone. Suddenly, her expression froze. Changxi herself entered the office. Chu was startled to see her and asked why she had come. She explained that she had heard about his mother's troubles and wanted to see if she could offer help. His mother revealed that their system had been hacked and had been down since the previous day, but reassured Changxi that their methods were highly advanced, so there was no reason to panic. She thanked Changxi for her offer nonetheless. Changxi then offered to provide financial aid, but Chu declined, saying money wasn't the issue since their family was well off. She asked what could be done instead, and Chu suggested an idea. He recommended reaching out to Wawa, who specialized in that very field. Changxi didn't seem thrilled with this suggestion. Moments later, Hua appeared unexpectedly in the office. Visibly nervous, Chu then asked Changxi to explain the whole situation to Hua. But when Changxi scolded her, Hua panicked and ran off. Chu then asked Changxi if she happened to have a gun. She handed him her firearm and aimed it at him, testing him. He said he needed a semi-automatic weapon and requested that she get him one. He explained it was specifically to counter Wang Chuan bullets, which might be the only way to confront the mayor. Changxi agreed to supply him with the weapon. Chu then thanked her and prepared to leave, explaining that he couldn't risk taking Changxi along to the mayor's estate, since if anything happened to her, it might ignite war between their families. But she grabbed him, accusing him of running off to meet his lover Hua instead. Chu stood bewildered at her suspicion. Changxi pressed further. She asked one of the staff for the washroom and deliberately led him into the women's restroom. He shouted at her for acting insane, pointing out they were still in his mother's company. She began pulling at his clothes, declaring that she would punish him herself. He pleaded with her to stop. He begged her not to go through with it today, she responded, saying that if he truly didn't want it, she wouldn't force him. But she warned that if she ever chose to get rid of the other women in his life, he must never oppose her decision. Chu broke down, lamenting how overpowering women were in this world, and he fled the place, making up an excuse. Yet Changxi caught hold of him again, gripping his shirt and demanding to know why he was acting so strangely today. She pressed further, asking if he had more girlfriends. He promised he would behave. He confessed to her about Ju, guilt weighing heavily on him. She responded, screaming at him in fury for what he had done. Hours later, Chu stood before a seemingly ordinary residence, though he suspected it was brimming with surveillance cameras inside. He could sense a powerful aura within. He realized it was nearly impossible to directly approach the Xing family members. With such tight security, barging in recklessly wasn't an option. He needed careful planning. His aim was to speak with Xing Li, hoping he wasn't like his mother and might side with his sister. Chu thought perhaps money could sway Xing Li to forget about his sister. But then, a car suddenly stopped in front of him, and from it stepped Tang's. Xian. Chu's focus sharpened immediately. She was surprised to find him there, asking if he had been waiting for her and how she knew his location. She then asked why he had skipped 2 days of school. He told her he was in a foul mood and needed some time away. She pressed again about his absence. She wondered aloud if he was angry with her. He replied, questioning why he would ever be angry with her. She continued. She explained that his mother's family had come under pressure because of the Tang family, and perhaps her mother had spoken harshly to him, so she worried he might resent her for it. He explained that it wasn't like that at all and not the reason he had skipped school. She responded by saying she was his girlfriend and didn't want him seeing any other girl while she was away. Chu then asked her about Jui Meng. She replied, telling him that Jui was the second-ranked great expert overseeing Jinmen, the largest black market. When she asked why he was suddenly curious about her, he answered plainly. He said he had only just heard about her, and then asked about the other 9 great experts. She explained that Xing Wei of the Xing family held the #1 position, while 2 belonged to her Tang family, her mother and her second aunt, along with 2 from the Yi family and 1 from John Wu Bu. Chu quickly realized that 2 of those experts were connected by the same family. She warned him that if he didn't back off, he would be walking into danger, and urged him to seek Hua's help to gather more information about them. Chu then went to Hua, thanking her for her assistance with his mother's company. She had already finished bathing and had changed into her pajamas. She remarked that solving his mother's company's crisis hadn't been very difficult, then asked how long he planned on staying. Chu told her he needed her help with something specific. He explained that he had to infiltrate the Xing family's residence that very day. Hua reminded him that the Xing family were the giants of Jinmen, and acquiring intelligence on them was no easy task. She asked him directly what type of information he required. Chu requested her to disable the surveillance system on Juki Street, hack into the Xing residence's security system, and provide him with a floor plan of the house along with the list of its residents. Just then, he heard footsteps approaching. Immediately, he drew his sword. Ready to strike, he froze when he recognized the figure. It was Changxi who had entered. Chu asked her why she was there. She shouted back, saying she had been searching for him and that his mother had said he was with Changxi. She grew furious at him for using her as an excuse to meet with Hua. Both Changxi and Hua were visibly trembling from the confrontation. Chu asked Changxi how she had managed to get in since the door was locked. She revealed she had unlocked it with the spare key Hua had given her. Chu snatched the key from her hand, tossed it straight into the trash bin, and warned her never to come there again. He told her not to bully Hua. She screamed at him for siding with Hua over her. She stormed out. Chu then turned to Hua and told her not to let Changxi inside again, and if she forced her way in, Hua should notify him immediately. Hua asked if he intended to follow Changxi. Chu replied that if Changxi lingered there, they wouldn't be able to get any work done. Suddenly, Changxi returned with a gun in her hand and blasted the door open, filling the room with thick smoke. Hua screamed. Startled but protective, Chu asked Changxi if that was the gun he had asked for. She aimed the weapon, pointing it directly at them, and fired. Hua screamed again, but Chu rushed toward her. He pushed the gun upward and demanded if Changxi had lost her mind, firing live rounds indoors. She declared that she could kill anyone in Jinmen if she chose to. Chu asked if she truly wanted him dead. She retorted that she only wanted to leave a hole in his body to prevent him from charming more women. Then she revealed the weapon to show him it was the model he had requested. To his relief, he confirmed that the gun was compatible with rank 3 Wang Chuan bullets, and he thanked Changxi for bringing it. He carefully placed the gun down and told her to head home. Instead, she said her car had broken down and asked if she could stay the night. Then she suddenly kissed him. Hua, devastated, looked on in disappointment as it happened right before her eyes. Chu tried to calm the situation, but the tension in the room was suffocating. He told Changxi to go to the living room and watch television since he and Hua had work to do. Changxi protested, insisting she could join them and help. He replied, saying Hua was tutoring him in academics, and asked if Changxi could solve a few math problems instead. She admitted she couldn't and said she would rather watch a spy drama on TV. Hua then displayed the schematic of the Xing residence, pointing out that the red dots marked cameras and the green ones marked security alarms. She reassured him she would handle the systems once he infiltrated the estate. Meanwhile, Changxi was eavesdropping at the door, trying to catch their conversation. She eventually pushed the door open to see exactly what they were doing. She suggested they all take a break and have a drink. Hua snapped, shouting at her to get out. Changxi, however, couldn't stop overthinking what they might be doing alone together, so she invented another excuse to come inside. She ordered food and brought it into the room. Still suspicious, she couldn't shake the thought of what else they might be hiding. Her paranoia grew worse, making her restless and unstable. When she peeked in again and saw them simply studying, she awkwardly told them she had ordered barbecue skewers for everyone. Chu, irritated, picked her up, slung her over his shoulder, and marched her out of the house. He carried her all the way to her car, which he saw was perfectly fine. He strapped her into the seat and told her firmly to leave. He shut the door, sending her back home, but Changxi clutched his shirt and yanked him back inside the vehicle. Chu said he didn't have time to waste playing around, but she refused to listen. Instead, she stopped him and kissed him again, desperate to keep him for herself so that Hua couldn't have him. Chu shoved her away, telling her he had serious matters to deal with. Those matters couldn't be ignored any longer. She slipped off her jacket seductively, but he forcefully pushed her down and warned that this time she would be punished. They grew intimate, and afterward, she asked nervously if she had pleased him and if he was angry. He replied that he could never truly be angry at her. Still, Changxi confessed, admitting she felt their bond weakening day by day because he kept getting entangled with other women. She sensed his anger and tried to pat his head, but he snapped at her, saying he was not a pet, and that had it been someone else, he would have cut off their hand. Then he ordered her to return home. She asked if he was going back to Hua immediately afterward. He hesitated, feeling it wrong to go back to Hua right after being with Changxi, yet he couldn't ignore his sister's situation. Changxi softly touched his back and admitted she liked him. She said it was because he wasn't like other men. She confessed she was drawn to men who were difficult to win over. Chu realized that no matter how many entanglements he had, trouble wouldn't find him. It was only those who sought him out who caused it. He began walking away when Changxi leaned out of the car window and teased him to behave like a good boy. He fired back, telling her to be a good girl and marry him. She laughed, replying that he was only 17, far too young for such talk. He asked if she hadn't treated him like a man just moments ago in the car, and pressed her on what she truly wanted. She smirked, saying as a marriage gift she wanted nothing less than all of Jinmen. Chu sighed and told her to simply be a good girl, then turned and went inside. The perspective shifted once more. The focus turned to the mayor's residence, where Chu prepared to infiltrate. With an earpiece connected, Hua guided him remotely, briefing him on the security setup and the layout of the rooms, while also reminding him that he had been hospitalized for quite some time. She urged him to be careful, but he told her not to worry, since he had already crafted a special mask for the mission. Chu slipped inside quietly, determined first to meet his potential brother-in-law. He caught sight of Ms. Jingyu amusing herself in her chamber, which confirmed to him that Xiao Tao must be upstairs on the second floor. He vaulted forward when suddenly maid carrying food caught sight of him. Chu froze for a brief moment, but the maid looked away, pretending she hadn't seen anything. She went about her work as if no one had been there at all. Chu then spotted Xiao Tao lying on his bed. He glanced at the photograph of himself with Chu's sister and understood in that moment that Xiao Tao's heart still lingered with feelings for her. Just then, Chu leapt straight onto the balcony. He pushed open the door and stepped inside. At his side, a sudden loud cry rang out. It was his maid, who quickly explained that he didn't wish to eat anything. But Xiao Tao wanted to see Chu Xiao, then Xiao Tai. Xiao Tao suddenly realized Chu was standing right behind him, trembling in fear. He shrieked, but Chu pressed a hand firmly over his mouth, telling him that he was Chu Xiao's younger brother. Xiao stammered out, asking what had happened to her, and shouted angrily. He demanded if Chu was aware of what fate had befallen his sister. His eyes widened. Tears rolled down his cheeks as he feared the worst, insisting it was all his fault. He had dragged her into this disaster. He confessed how much he regretted it, repeating over and over that he had been terrified for her. Chu urged him to remain quiet, clarifying that their mother had tried to kill Chu Xiao, but he had intervened and saved her. Xiao Tao groaned that it was still his fault, explaining further that their mother wanted to force him into marriage with Tang Xian, regardless of his own will. Chu was shaken to hear Tang Xian's name, as Xiao Tao hastily began to pack his belongings to escape, but Chu told him not to do that. He explained he had come in search of their mother, intending to confront her in person. Xiao Tao sighed that it was useless, for she would never listen and refused even to meet him. Chu answered that he still wanted to try, but he needed to ensure that the expert Xing Wei didn't interfere with his plan. If that was secured, he could handle the rest. Xiao Tao responded bitterly that Xing Wei was imprisoned and not even allowed to see her. Chu suggested Xiao Tao attempt to lure her into meeting him, proposing that he pretend to attempt suicide, creating enough chaos to occupy her for 30 minutes. Xiao Tao eagerly accepted, and said he could even keep her company for one night. Chu dropped down again, spotting her, and made his decision to go in. As she emerged from the bathroom, she found him sitting on her bed, a mask concealing his face. Strangely enough, she smiled with delight at the sight of him. Chu was unsettled by how she uttered not a single sound of alarm upon seeing him there. She strolled toward him, lowered herself onto his lap, and teasingly asked if he was the newcomer sent by the Li family. Chu felt as if she regarded him as nothing more than a plaything. She then pulled away his mask and pressed her lips against his. Chu shoved her back. The sharp edge of his mask scraped against her. The wound made her faint. Chu slipped out of the room afterward and perched himself on a tree branch, gazing in through the window. The mistress sat quietly in her chamber, reading a document when one of her maids entered breathless and reported that Xiao Tao had attempted suicide. The mistress asked coldly if he still hadn't grasped the truth, but Wei urged her not to be harsh, reminding her that he was still too immature. Wei then rushed off to check on Xiao Tao. The mistress remained alone in her room. Chu moved forward, knocking at her door, and was permitted to enter. The mistress froze when she laid eyes on him. She immediately ordered him to leave, promising she would act as though she had never seen him. Chu lowered himself onto the sofa and calmly replied that he could not leave so easily. She declared that she already knew he had spoken to Xiao Tao and questioned if he had come here on behalf of Chu Xiao. He replied that indeed he had, and his sole purpose was to request that she permit her son to marry Chu Xiao. She laughed derisively, mocking the thought that Chu Xiao could dream of marrying her son with such insignificant family status, and demanded to know who Chu really was. He lifted his mask away. At once she recognized him as Xiao's younger brother, Qia Cheng. She remarked that it seemed his sister still lived, and that Ming Zui no longer held any respect for her. Chu corrected her, stating Meng Zui had already let his sister go, and all he asked was for her to cease further punishment. He raised his gun, saying he only came to plead for forgiveness on behalf of his sister and for her release. She smirked, asking if he was threatening her with a rank 3 Wang Chuan bullet inside that gun. He leveled it at her. She taunted him, daring him to fire, but in a flash she lunged forward and struck him from behind. The blow was devastating. Chu fell, bleeding heavily, and realized with horror just how quick she was. The mistress now held his weapon, scoffing if he truly believed he could shield his sister with such a useless tool. Chu admitted his arrogance, confessing that to decide victory or defeat here would be meaningless. She said it had been years since anyone had impressed her this much, and if his family had the same influence as the Tang clan, she might consider letting Xiao Tao marry Chu Xiao. She then noticed the unique bullet from the Gong family and asked if he bore ties to them. He answered that he possessed a marriage contract with their house. She demanded proof. Chu countered by asking if she would indeed agree to the marriage if his family matched the Tang in stature. He then retrieved the marriage contract and displayed it to her. Thankfully, Gong Yua had repaired it and returned it to him. The mistress was stunned as she read, realizing he was connected. She muttered about letting him choose her grandson. He firmly told her that his sister was Chu and Lan's granddaughter, fulfilling the requirement she sought. She pointed out that his family resided in Jinmen while their roots lay in Didu, questioning whether his mother had been cast out of the Chu clan. She scoffed that this so-called marriage amounted to nothing more than recycling discarded waste, his mother forced to hide in Jinmen just to survive. Chu suggested they abandon talk of marriage altogether and move to another subject. She flung the marriage contract back at him, demanding to know what else he wished to discuss. Chu tore the contract apart, declaring it worthless in his eyes. She rose, stepped close, and asked if he even understood what the name Chu and Lan symbolized. Chu said it mattered little to him, for those 3 characters were not the reason he could sleep peacefully each night. She replied that her courtesy toward him stemmed only from his bloodline as Chu and Lan's grandson, and revealed she had even struck the head of the Guan family. Now, only because of his ancestry, she was showing him respect. Chu had never known this, astonished at the sheer dominance of the most formidable women in power. She lamented aloud, wondering how she had fallen into such a wretched condition. At that moment Wei entered, bowing to apologize. She begged forgiveness for arriving late and asked the mistress to punish her, but the mistress replied it was not her fault. She then instructed Chu to voice his final request, for she was ready to strike him down. Wei stepped in quickly, announcing that her daughter had gone missing. She added that Chu had a hand in the matter. Wei seized Chu by the throat and demanded to know the truth about her daughter's whereabouts. Chu gasped that this was precisely what he wished to discuss. The mistress released him and commanded him to speak. Chu pleaded for his sister's life, warning that Meng Zui could hunt her down with ease if she continued to give the order. The mistress coldly declared she would simply take his life instead of his sister's. Chu cried out in desperation, begging for another way. The mistress said she would dispatch someone to search for her daughter, and if they succeeded, his entire family would pay the price. She repeated that nothing could be done until her daughter was located. Wei leaned in close, whispering something in the mistress' ear. The mistress concluded then that her daughter had been present that very night, accusing Chu of hiding her nearby and boasting that they could uncover her easily. She reclined in her chair and drew out his phone. 2196. The mistress asked if he was trying to summon reinforcements. Chu retorted, asking if it concerned her should he call for aid. She smirked, saying she was curious to see who would respond. Chu quickly sent a message to Hua, pressing her for an update on the person he had ordered her to track. But she admitted she had nothing certain to report. Chu clenched his teeth in frustration, realizing she still hadn't uncovered any solid information. The mistress sat facing Chu, remarking that it had already been a full hour of waiting for someone to come and rescue him. She asked mockingly if he was counting on Changxi or Tang Xian to appear and save him. Chu calmly replied, asking if she truly believed he had come here without preparing a plan. He admitted he disliked resorting to old tricks, but if given half a year he could surpass her without difficulty. Wei burst into laughter, ridiculing him and saying that as a fourth-grade master in the hero's realm, it was absurd for him to think he could overtake her so easily. Chu answered that it mattered little whether she was a fourth-grade master. Even if she and Granny possessed overwhelming strength, that didn't mean they lacked weaknesses. Just as the mistress was about to summon someone, Chu received an incoming notification. It was a photo of a man sent to him by Hua. Wei suddenly entered and announced to the mistress that her daughter had been discovered hiding beneath the bed. The mistress glared at Chu and declared that this would be the end of him. But then Chu displayed the image Hua had sent, asking Wei if she was about to call that man. Both the mistress and Wei were stunned by the photo, and Wei immediately leapt forward, striking Chu with her fist. Chu warned them that harming him would bring harm to that man as well. Mistress stopped Wei and insisted she would handle the matter herself. She then demanded to know how Chu had uncovered that man's identity. Chu explained that he had arranged for someone to investigate her. He reasoned that if the man were merely a casual partner, she would have brought him into her home openly. But the secrecy of her meetings with him revealed he was someone she wished to keep hidden. Wei conceded that Chu was shrewd and pressed him for his conditions. Chu demanded that his sister and Xiao Tao be allowed to marry. The mistress agreed but added a stipulation. Chu Xiao's family must purchase a house on Shank Street within 1 year, or else Chu Xiao would have to marry into her family. Chu answered that it was no issue and asked her to record it in writing. He also requested that she compose a letter to Meng Zui, instructing him to leave his sister alone. The mistress screamed at him for doubting her word but nevertheless wrote the agreement on paper. She handed him the letter and while departing told him to vent his anger on Meng Zui since she considered him too arrogant. The mistress then asked if he despised Meng Zui because he had slept with her in order to save his sister. Chu's heart froze at the accusation and he denied it. But before he could finish his words, the mistress cut him off, saying she still had more to tell him. Chu asked sharply what else she wished to reveal. She mentioned Liu Feng, the very man shown in the photograph. Chu urged her not to worry, assuring her he would keep it a secret. The mistress clarified that their relationship was not what he might assume. She explained that when the Empress had ascended the throne, she herself had once been a candidate for the position of third Duchess. But she chose instead to resign from that honor in order to remain with Liu Feng. Chu was stunned to learn that Liu Feng was connected to the Empress. He shouted furiously, demanding why she was revealing such a thing, warning her that the Empress would kill anyone who learned of it. The mistress calmly agreed, reminding him that he had just boasted he could surpass both her and Xingwei within 6 months. Chu, overwhelmed with frustration, declared that if he couldn't achieve it within. The mistress silenced him, pressing something into his hand, 3 Wang Chuan bullets given to him as advanced weapons. She called them a wedding gift for his sister. Chu accepted them and left her chamber. As he exited, the mistress's daughter appeared, shrieking at Chu for daring to harm her mother. She raised her hand to strike him, Chu caught her wrist midair and told her bluntly that he was not in the mood for games. She sneered, boasting that she had beaten his sister bloody even when she hadn't fought back, and asked what made him think she would let him walk away unharmed. Chu narrowed his eyes and asked if she was the one who had caused the wound on his sister's face. She laughed wickedly and admitted that it had been her. His palm cracked across her face, striking her so hard she collapsed to the ground. Chu stated coldly that although he did not usually raise his hand against women, he would always make an exception if it was for the sake of his sister. Wei prepared to attack Chu in retaliation, but the mistress stopped her, preventing any further escalation. Chu remarked that the Xing family's children were nothing but spoiled and undisciplined. With that, he turned and departed the estate. The mistress then instructed Wei to send Liu Feng to the Wang Chuan training camp and find him a worthy instructor, as she believed Liu Feng lacked discipline. Wei reminded her that it was the harshest camp in the military, with only 20% surviving intact while the rest were crippled or killed. The mistress said it did not matter. If Liu Feng died, then his life held no value. She concluded that in such a case, Xiao Tao could inherit the family as men and women were equal, just like Chu Ching. Wei reflected. As Chu returned to Hua, who clung to him fearfully, hugging him tight, she asked if he had been forced to fight against many women, and he joked that he had only been battered by 2 foolish old grandmothers. Hua said she didn't care as long as he was safe, and Chu asked her to let him rest. Then she noticed 18 missed calls from Tang Xian. Chu answered at last, telling her he needed to sleep. Tang asked if he was skipping school and told him to notify the teacher about his absence. She warned that if he didn't show up, the school would call his parents. Chu asked why they would call his parents. Tang reminded him about the wager he had made with the teacher over the mock exam. Chu rushed off to school, arriving just as the teacher was about to begin class. He entered to find every eye, including his teachers, fixed on him. Laughter erupted from the students, and Chu felt nerves tighten in his chest. The teacher scolded him harshly for his tardiness and demanded if he had forgotten the test. Chu bowed his head, apologized, and took his seat. When the bell rang, the students began whispering to each other about the test. The class president walked over to Chu and asked if he had managed to reach the top 10. Chu responded that he had completed every question. Just then, Tang Xian entered the room and saw Chu speaking with the class president. One of Tang's friends marched up, shoving the girl aside and accusing her of flirting with Tang Xian's man. Chu glared and warned her to mind her own business, or he would snap her bones. She shouted at him in outrage, but Tang restrained her, warning that it would be wiser not to provoke Chu. Tang then invited Chu to join her for lunch. Chu accepted and also invited Corin to come along. Tang's friend shouted furiously at him again. Tang calmly told her to stop, pointing out she was not prettier than Tang Xian anyway. Corin, frightened, declined to join them. Chu noticed Yamal blushing at Tang's friend and pressed him to come for lunch too. He added that Tao Yuniao would be joining them as well. Yamal hesitated, but Chu persuaded him. Then he turned to Tang Xian to ask where they should go. Tang suddenly asked if he was Yi Chengxi's brother, making Chu stiffen with nervousness. He hurried to change the subject, pretending he was starving. They all headed out to eat, and Chu noticed Mao constantly blushing. Tang asked him about the test results and whether he had managed to place in the top 10. Chu admitted he wasn't certain yet. She also asked if he had been with Yi Chengxi recently. This made Chu nervous again, and he muttered that he had simply been too busy. That question struck directly at his pride, which only worsened his unease. Chu then turned to Mao and encouraged him to confess his feelings to Tao Yuniao. Mao faltered, and Tao remarked that Chu was only trying to change the subject, calling Mao unlucky to have such a friend. Chu confirmed that Mao couldn't bring himself to say it out loud, but he truly did have feelings for Tao. He then turned to Tao and asked her what she thought about Mao. Tao told Su not to pressure Mao and instead suggested that Su should also confess his own feelings. Su then took Tang Xian's hand and admitted directly that he liked her. After that, he encouraged Mao to go ahead and make his own confession. Right at that moment, Tang asked Chu what exactly his relationship was with Yi Chengxi. This created an awkward silence for Chu. Sitting there nervously, he tried to keep calm while Tao urged him to just be honest. Gathering his courage, Mao finally stood up and confessed that he loved Tao Yuniao. Tao was caught off guard by his sudden declaration. Mao continued by explaining that they had known each other ever since kindergarten. He brought up a memory of when their teacher had brought in a pile of cupcakes. While everyone else ate about 4 or 5, Tao had eaten 13, which left a strong impression on him. He also recalled a contest when they were 9 years old, where Tao managed to eat 8 ice creams and even gave him 2 from the 5 extra she won. He went on with another story from their middle school graduation, where there had been a steamed bun eating contest. Most people managed 6 or 7 buns, while Mao only got through 3. Tao, however, ate 10. Mao admitted he felt embarrassed retelling these moments. Chu then teased Tao for eating so much despite staying so slim. Feeling overwhelmed, Tao shouted at Mao, accusing him of being a crybaby since they were kids. Mao, however, was secretly happy that she remembered since it was true. Tao then shoved his face into the food on the table and stormed out of the room. Tang, not wanting to stay either, also got up and left. Mao was left sitting there, confused about why she had reacted in that way. Chu reassured him that he hadn't done anything wrong, explaining that Tao was just embarrassed. Mao then asked Chu to give him a warning next time since he ended up feeling embarrassed himself. Chu agreed to let him know in advance, but also asked what exactly was so embarrassing about it. Afterwards, Chu went back home and walked in to see Hua sitting there with his mother. He immediately asked what she was doing there. His mother explained that she had invited Hua over for dinner to thank her for helping with the company. She added that she also needed Chu's help with something and brought him into her room. Once they were inside, his mother asked him about his relationship with Hua. Chu answered that they were just friends. She pushed for more, asking what kind of friend she really was. Chu then asked if Hua had said anything to her. His mother told him she simply had a gut feeling, then scolded him for liking Changxi while also spending time with Hua, questioning whether he had any self-respect. Chu felt awkward and embarrassed hearing this. His mother pressed further, demanding to know what his real intentions were. He told her he planned for them to marry into their family. His mother screamed at him, calling him insane. Chu replied that he was an adult who knew what he was doing, and even pointed out that she should be lecturing his sister instead, since she had already brought in a son-in-law. Annoyed, his mother decided to let the matter go this time, and told him to call his sister down for dinner. She then walked to his sister's room, where she found her lying on the bed, busy with a video call. He told her to hang up immediately, criticizing her for staying locked in her room all day. She asked him to wait just a little longer, but after 20 minutes he lost patience, pushed her head lightly and told her to end the call. Surprised by his interruption, Xiao finally ended the call. Out of nowhere, Xiao hugged him and thanked him for protecting their relationship. She revealed that their mother was no longer against it. Chu immediately shoved her away and shouted at her for being so weird. She punched him back for being rude, while Chu got even more angry, thinking she should have been grateful instead. Xiao quickly apologized, asking him to just forget it and cheer up again. Chu then asked her if she could really meet their mother's expectations. Nervously, she asked what those expectations actually were. He told her bluntly that their mother demanded she secure a house on Juk Street within a year, otherwise she would have to marry into their family. Xiao was stunned, saying it was impossible to buy a house there, and even with money there was no guarantee of success. Chu told her there were a few possible solutions. One of them, he suggested, was for her to help their mother with the company, which carried a massive burden. Chu then turned to talk with Hua and Chu proposed that Hua join his mother's company as a technical consultant for a new software project. Hua grew nervous, uncertain whether she had the skills to handle such a task. Chu reassured her, saying that if she couldn't do it, then no one else could. Hua confessed she was worried because his mother didn't seem to like her. But Chu told her it only came down to giving a simple yes or no. After a moment, she agreed to take the offer. Chu pulled her into a hug and kissed her. From the terrace, his mother was watching and saw everything. Embarrassed, Hua pulled away and quickly left. Chu thought to himself that she was just like the girls he had known in the ordinary world. Later, when he stepped into the house, he told his mother that he wanted Hua to work in her company. She replied that while Hua was certainly talented, there was no position available. Chu pushed further, insisting that she expand the company and set up a department for Hua to develop new software. She answered that she had never planned to expand that far and reminded him that it would be extremely costly. Chu pressed harder, saying she had to do it for the sake of the Chu family. His mother snapped, shouting at him and questioning how much he really understood. Chu admitted he didn't know much, but declared he would never marry into the Gong family and that he wasn't afraid of Chu and Lan. His mother screamed at him again, ordering him to return to his room. She then went to his room, where he sat by the window, reflecting on how the Chu family had tormented his mother in the past. He felt determined to uncover the truth of what had happened. His mother entered and shouted, telling him to get down from the window. Chu apologized, saying he should not have brought it up. His mother admitted she had been harsh, but he was right. She explained that she only wanted a quiet, peaceful life, but had been pushed to the edge, even having her own son used for the family's benefit. She said that if she kept tolerating it, they would only keep exploiting her, and she must not allow that. Chu was relieved to hear this, realizing that his last remaining problem was Zuimeng. Chu went to Zuimeng, who asked if his sister's matter had already been resolved. He tossed her a letter, which she caught. Su remarked that she seemed weaker compared to Xing Wei. Zuimeng asked how he had managed to succeed. Chu replied that he was leaving, and it would be best if they stayed out of each other's way. She demanded a straight answer and kept pressing. Chu said Xing Li had ordered him to keep it secret, warning her that she could kill him if she wanted. Instead, he suddenly turned and kissed her. She shoved him back with her power, and he asked what she was really after. He added that, by the world's logic, he was the one who had been taken advantage of. Zuimeng grabbed him by the neck, lifted him up, and demanded to know why he kissed her. Her grip tightened on his throat, but Chu forced himself up and kicked her in the stomach, breaking free. He warned her not to try anything underhanded, or she would regret it. She demanded he apologize and pay her before leaving. After giving a reluctant apology, Zuimeng demanded money. When Chu asked why she wanted money from him, she told him it was part of their deal and revealed that she had a recording. Humiliated, Chu argued that she had been the one who pushed him into those things, and now she dared to ask for his money. He told her he had no money. She then demanded his sword if he couldn't pay. Chu replied that it wasn't with him at the moment. But Zuimeng remembered that he had summoned it before and pressed him to teach her that ability. If he did, she said she would let him go. Chu called her greedy. She told him to fulfill his part of the deal, otherwise she wouldn't let him leave alive. Chu drew his gun, accusing her of forcing him into this mess. He aimed the weapon straight at her, standing firm, ready to prove he would not be pushed around any longer. He aimed his shot at her, but she halted it midair. With her ability, she stopped the bullet in its tracks. The impact triggered a sudden explosion. Chu collapsed to the ground. Smoke filled the area around him. Out of the haze, she stepped forward, drawing closer with her own weapon in hand. She admitted he had some wit, but asked what made him believe a grade 3 Wang Chuan bullet could hold her back. She was far too sharp for that. He reminded her that he wasn't the only one carrying Wang Chuan bullets. Su followed up by asking what if there were 2 or 3 bullets. He revealed that the mayor had entrusted him with 3 Wang Chuan bullets. The 2 of them were clearly ready to clash. Chu pointed out that killing her would bring him no gain, so he offered a deal. He would give her 100 spirit stones like the ones he had handed over earlier. Zui replied that it still wouldn't be enough for her. He tossed a magical pill her way and asked, what if he added this pill into the bargain? She caught it in her hand and demanded to know what it was. He answered plainly. He told her to consume it right away and see the effect for herself. She did so without hesitation. Instantly, she felt her power surge to a whole new level. Astonished, she eagerly asked for more. He promised to hand over a bundle of them, large enough to fill his fist. She accepted the offer without question. He placed a handful of the pills into her grasp. Realizing just how troublesome Chu had become, she remembered how he had first shattered her pole and then broken her roof. She decided she wanted to claim him as her male pet, declaring he would never slip out of her grasp. As Chu prepared to leave, he made a declaration of his own. He swore that no matter what happened, he would make her take the surname Chu. The following day, Chu visited Chu Tianan's company. He saw that everyone had gathered around Hua, seeking her help since she had just been appointed as the company's new technical director. Chu watched the scene unfold for a while, then leaned in with a playful smile. He whispered in her ear, addressing her as Director Cheng. She quickly replied. She told him not to tease her. She explained that she was supposed to be just a consultant, but his mother had placed her in the director's chair instead. Chu responded that his mother had a sharp eye for talent, and Hua was already doing an outstanding job earning everyone's respect. Hua asked if he came only to tease her, but Chu said he was actually there to invite her out for dinner. They needed to celebrate. Hua lit up and suggested they return to the same restaurant they had gone to before. Just as they were leaving, Chu's sister came running up to them. She clutched her leg, complaining that she had been stuck in the office all day and couldn't take it anymore. Su teased that if she couldn't endure it, then she would just have to marry into the Xing family. Suddenly motivated, she declared that she could keep going after all. Then Chu and Hua left together. The story shifted to Chu's school, where the students were buzzing with gossip. Mao approached Chu, grabbed his hand, and asked if he had finished preparing his apology speech. Chu, puzzled, asked what she was talking about. Mao explained that the exam scores had been released, and everyone was saying Chu hadn't made it into the top 10, so he should be ready to apologize during the morning assembly. Chu shot back that he wouldn't give in so easily, then asked how Mao could be so sure he didn't make the top 10. Mao replied that no boy had ever managed to break into the top 10 rankings. They went to class where their teacher stood waiting with the test results, looking very spirited. She pointed straight at Chu and told him to deliver a message. He was to tell his parents to come to the school the next day. The class started whispering again, certain he had failed to make the top 10. Chu calmly insisted that he believed he had done well enough to rank in the top 10, as the exam hadn't been too difficult for him. The teacher told him he was mistaken. His results placed him first in the class but 11th in the entire grade, which meant he was locked out of the top 10. She accused him of cheating, saying he couldn't have possibly broken into the top 10, even by dishonest means. Chu raised his voice at her, furious over the accusations, and demanded she provide solid proof. The teacher claimed she had evidence and said the footage would be reviewed. She added that the 8th class teacher had already told her Chu had cheated, and now she wanted to seize this chance to punish him. Meanwhile, Tang Xian was out on the court playing basketball. Tao rushed over, grabbed her arm, and told her that her boyfriend was in trouble. The teacher was accusing him of cheating on the exam, and he had already been taken to the security room. Tang brushed it off, saying it didn't concern her. Tao pressed harder, saying it was rare to see him embarrassed, and it would be even better if Mao ended up dragged into it too. Tang told him he was going to be disappointed, but the two of them went to the security room together anyway. The principal was present as well. Tang and Tao entered, and Tang immediately walked straight up to Chu. The footage showed clearly that Chu had not cheated during the exam. Instead, it revealed that others had. Tang then turned to Teacher Wu and asked if she hadn't just accused Chu of cheating. Ms. Wu shrieked that she had never said such a thing. The principal responded that if that were the case, then there was no issue, but Chu played footage of another girl who was actually cheating. Tang asked Ms. Wu if that girl was her student. Ms. Wu admitted the girl belonged to her class. Tang shouted angrily, saying that Ms. Wu's student had been the one cheating, yet she had tried to destroy her own student's reputation instead. The director was ashamed to witness this and ordered Tao to summon the girl from Class 8. Ms. Wu scolded the girl directly for cheating on the exam. The girl confessed, apologizing and admitting she had contacted several classmates, asking each of them to study a single topic so they could share answers and cheat during the test. The principal was enraged and personally led the rest of the group to the director, instructing her to punish every student involved. The director then asked Chu if he had been the one who boosted the school's popularity during the basketball competition. She apologized to him for the incident and told him to rely on her if he ever faced problems again. Chu replied that part of the fault lay with him too, since he shouldn't have argued so much with his class teacher. As they stepped out of the security room, Tao remarked to Chu that he was incredibly lucky to have made the top 10 just like that. Chu didn't understand, so Tang explained the situation. The girl who had cheated had been ranked among the top 10. As punishment, her results were nullified, removing her from the top 10 entirely, which meant Chu now officially entered the top 10. Tang congratulated him, saying he was the first boy ever to achieve a top 10 result in a test. Tao quickly asked him how he managed it, and whether he had used some hidden method to cheat during the exam. Chu retorted that he hadn't done anything like that, and asked if she even had a brain in that big head of hers. Everyone around them was buzzing, talking about how Chu had reached the top 10 and how well-matched he and Tang Xian were. They went back to class, where the teacher announced a new transfer student. Chu felt relieved, thinking that with this, Ms. Tong might not cause him any more trouble. Then Li Yui walked into the classroom, and everyone immediately recognized him as Tang Xian's fiancé, Li Yui. He introduced himself formally to the class. Later, Chu was speaking with Tang Xian in the corridor. He asked if her mother had been the one who arranged for Li Yui to join their school. Tang asked him straight out if he was jealous of Li Yui. Chu answered that there was no comparison between them. Tang teased him to just admit it. Then she pulled his face toward her and planted a kiss on his cheek. Li Yue was watching them from a distance, and he was visibly irritated by the sight. Li Yue rushed forward toward Tang Xian. Mao then appeared and asked Chu if he was going to do something about Li Yue, since he might end up stealing Tang Xian away from him. Chu told him not to worry, saying that if Li Yue actually managed to take her away, then Chu would think even more highly of him, and it would make things all the more entertaining. Soon word spread that Li Yui was talking badly about him and spreading rumors to ruin his reputation. Fei suggested dragging Li Yui into the men's restroom and beating him up. Chu dismissed the idea, saying Li Yui wasn't worth their effort and could do whatever he liked. The real obstacle was Tang Xian's mother, and Chu needed to change her opinion of him. They mentioned that they had been practicing the cultivation technique Chu had taught them, and so far there were no side effects at all. Chu reassured them, saying of course there wouldn't be, and reminded them that he would never betray them. He checked on their progress, noticing one had already reached the 5th realm. Another had advanced into the 6th realm, while one was still stuck in the 3rd realm and was feeling discouraged about it. Chu told him that talent and consistent practice mattered the most, and that he shouldn't feel depressed over it. To help, Chu handed out spirit stones so they could cultivate faster. He realized then that his cultivation method was practically perfect for them, as they had reached the He-Jiang realm in such a short time. Afterwards, he lay back on the grass, wondering whether he would ever leave this world, and even if he could, whether he really should. Thinking about everyone he cared for, he realized he couldn't just abandon them. Then his thoughts drifted to God. He hoped she had taken his warning about her body seriously. The scene shifted to the school canteen, where Chu and Mao were eating together. Tao walked in and told Chu she had finally found someone even more annoying than him. She was referring to Li Yue, who was sticking close to Tang Xian. Tang Xian and Li Yue got their food, and Tang brought him over to sit at their table. Li Yue didn't want to sit there because Chu was already there, but Tang refused to sit anywhere else. So they sat down. Mao tugged at Chu's shirt and whispered, telling him they shouldn't get mixed up in this three-way mess. Chu said he was done with it and wanted to leave, but Tang warned him to think carefully before deciding to go. Li Yue grew irritated watching them together and tried to distract Tang by rambling about trivial things. Chu, annoyed by his antics, told Tang that if he were in her shoes, he would have beaten Li Yue up a long time ago. Then he casually took some food off Tang's plate. Li Yue, clearly jealous, asked Tang to feed him with her hand. She did, and he lit up with joy. Chu then pointed out, "Didn't you say you don't even like pork?" Realizing this slip, Li Yue immediately vomited right there on the table. Tang was so embarrassed she walked away. Li Yue then turned to Chu, warning him to stay away from Tang Xian, or else he wouldn't let him off so easily. Chu tried to mess with him by pretending Tang Xian was standing right behind him. Li Yue whined, claiming Chu had told him to stay away from her, and even tried to make it look like Chu was the bad guy. But when he turned around and realized Tang wasn't actually there, he screamed at Chu in frustration. Chu calmly replied that if Li Yue ever married Tang Xian, the Tang family would only end up closer to ruin. Li Yue shouted furiously, vowing to remember this. Chu then pointed out that Tang Xian really was behind him this time. But thinking it was another trick, Li Yue snapped that he wouldn't be fooled again and loudly declared that anyone chasing after Tang Xian would meet their end. Chu turned back around, ignoring him, which only made Li Yue shout louder that Chu was disregarding his warning. Then, Li Yue realized Tang really was standing behind him. Tang Xian had been there the whole time. Panicking, Li Yue tried to defend himself, saying Chu had provoked him first. Tang coolly replied that she didn't care and told him to leave. Li Yue begged her to forgive him, but she was indifferent and he eventually left. Chu then cheekily asked Tang if he could get a reward for helping her. She told him that wasn't how it worked, and as her boyfriend, it was already his responsibility to chase away people like Li Yue. Chu responded that he was allowing Li Yue to follow her around. Tang asked if that meant he got jealous whenever Li Yue trailed after her. Chu denied it, saying he actually found it kind of entertaining. Meanwhile, Li Yue hired someone and showed him a picture of Chu Ching. He told the man he wanted this boy to die in the most painful way possible. The man agreed to carry out the job. Later that day, Chu sensed something bad was about to happen. Then he received a message from Zui Meng, who sent a picture of his sister, saying she was waiting for him at Drunken Dreams. Chu panicked, thinking his sister had been kidnapped again, and quickly called to check if she was safe. Suzia was fine, but Chu Ching was left wondering about Zui Meng's true intentions, suspecting she might be planning something against his sister if he didn't show up. As Chu got into his car and shut the door, he felt something wasn't right. He immediately jumped back out just as the car exploded into flames. The fire spread violently in seconds. A crowd gathered quickly around the burning vehicle. Chu called and reported that there had been an explosion outside the school. Duo, who was already nearby, told him this would definitely end up in the news. Chu explained that someone had just tried to kill him and asked Duo to help track down who was behind the attack. Duo agreed and promised to update Chu as soon as they found anything. Chu then headed to Drunken Dreams, thinking Zui Meng couldn't be the one behind the explosion. She wasn't the type to use underhanded methods like that, and he knew he wouldn't be able to blame her for it. He went up to the 67th floor where Zui Meng was waiting. He asked her straight out why she had called him there. She offered him tea, making the cup float in the air with her powers, and asked why he seemed so angry. She even seemed surprised at how much her abilities had grown in such a short time. Then, without warning, she used her powers to shatter the cup over his head, causing the tea to spill all over him. Chu used his own power to control the tea and drink it instead. He then hurled the tea along with the leaves straight toward her, but she absorbed them effortlessly. Chu told her playtime was over and demanded she explain why she had summoned him. She replied calmly that she wanted him to become her male pet. Chu said he wasn't interested and turned to leave. Zui Meng ordered him to stop. When Chu turned back, she suddenly lunged at him, trying to grab him. In the struggle, his shirt was torn and she called him Han, and then ripped off his pants as well. Chu shouted at her, saying she didn't need to make a big deal of it. She was just horny and had called him there for that reason. But she insisted that he give her what she wanted. Chu held her by the waist and told her she needed to be honest and clear about her intentions. Zui Meng pushed him down and began acting seductively. Chu got on top, and Zui Meng was thrilled that he seemed to be taking the initiative. After some time, they lay together, and Zui Meng told him once more that she wanted him as her pet, promising to treat him well. She also asked him to teach her the secret technique he used to hide his weapons. Chu asked if she would forgive him if he ever wronged her or made her angry. She eagerly said she wouldn't hold grudges against him and pressed again if he was going to teach her the technique. Chu said he would show her something, but warned she mustn't get angry at him for it. He raised a finger, causing her to suddenly flare up with rage toward him. She slammed on the window, then jumped right out of it as Chu floated outside in the air. Li Yue shouted at him, asking if he wanted her to kill him. He replied that since she had broken their promise and gotten angry at him, their agreement was void, and then he walked away. She vowed that she would kill him the next time they met. Since his sister still worked there as a bartender, she knew she could take revenge at any time. He went to the restroom to change his clothes, and afterward called Joe to ask about who had blown up his car. Joe reported that the person had been hired by Li Yue and that they had discovered the man would be picking someone up at Jiangming Airport at midnight. Chu was furious with Li Yue and wanted to kill him. Chu walked along the road. Tang Xian approached him and asked if he planned to kill Li Yue. He confirmed that he intended to do so. She advised him to calm down, warning that killing Li Yue now would cause a lot of trouble since he was part of the Li family. Chu responded that he didn't care about the consequences. If he didn't kill Li Yue would undoubtedly try to kill him again. Tang Xian urged him to understand that he should wait, insisting this wasn't the right time to strike. Chu argued that the Li family and the Yi family might spark a war, and asked if she wanted him to wait until the Yi family was destroyed before killing Li Yue. He admitted that she already knew he had ties with the Yi family, which was why she hadn't told him everything, but he clarified that this wasn't about the Yi family, it was about him, and he believed this was the perfect moment to act. Tang cautioned that if he killed Li Yue, the Li family would seek revenge, potentially endangering both the Yi family and Chu's own family. Chu told her not to worry and insisted that nothing would stop him from killing Li Yue. Tang insisted she wouldn't allow the Yi family to be destroyed because of his actions. Chu thanked her for caring about him. She then asked if Yi Changxi or the Yi family's secret martial arts technique was behind his confidence. Chu replied that none of that mattered. Tang Xian was the most important person to him. Tang blushed and Chu realized that if he didn't relent, he would invite far more trouble in the future. Still, Chu drew his sword and declared that nothing would stop him from killing Li Yue today, not even the Yi family. He said he only needed his sword and the trust of the people he loved to overcome any obstacle in his path. Then he told her he had nothing more to say.